Oh, I know how to
right
start
now.
recording, and then we say,
We say welcome
"Come
to the
to the
Barrel
Barrel
Vision
Vision
podcast.
podcast."
Yeah, we do that, and then I ask Harry, "Are we actually recording?" Because I feel
And then I
like we are.
say, "Yes, we are."
Okay,
So
good.
please don't swear.
Please do not say shit or fuck.
Please do not say fuck or bucker or shit or cunt. Maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah,
I don't have to
that
use
one's
that word.
actually people are not a fan of that one.
Americans are particularly not a fan of it. Like they're more.
Yeah.
That's like really taboo to them. I mean, it's taboo even in my like house. Though that's the thing. Everything goes except
Yeah,
that.
I wouldn't
Even
say that.
slurs, which maybe I shouldn't say, but um, uh, God damn it. Okay. Obviously this is a Saturday. Let's point that out first. Because we've been streaming both Thursday and Friday, which makes perfect sense. And
We did it last time as well, though. Like last season,
we
did the
didn't
exact
record a
same
podcast on Saturday, did we?
thing. No? I'm pretty sure we did. We
I
spent the
def-
2
well,
days.
I definitely remember streaming on Thursday, at least. That makes sense. Or maybe that's more of a thing with the events. I'm not sure. The holiday events. Speaking of which, I was right about the summer thing because it should have started by now. Basically, I think last year it started on the 21st of June. But the thing about that one is that it was actually a 3-week event, and I reckon that. Oh, I don't reckon. I think what they should do is have it set up so that it starts when they go on their break and ends when they come back. That's what I think what they should do.
Well, we only needed it before because they knew that there was nothing. It was a vacant void, and they were going on holiday. So they're like, "All right, we need to do something." Except this time, it's been here, so there is something to do, and it probably will tide us over a little bit until the events start picking up.
It'll try to serve more than a holiday event. I'll say that. That we can say for certain. How much how much legs season 4 really has is obviously going to be a pretty big discussion. But at the same time, like I said before we start recording, I do not know where to start. I do not know, like at all.
I think maybe guttural first instincts might be an idea.
Guttural instincts. Season 4 tastes so good when you hit that bitch in year 10 it's nasty. That's my gut instinct. Because it does taste pretty good. I'm at a very strong positive on the parts of what season 4 adds. If I can be very clear, I'm a fan of everything that it's brought to the game, pretty much.
Yeah.
Although, surprisingly, and this could be a jumping off point, although I don't want to stop you from giving your gut reaction, but Randomizer has not hooked me at all. But maybe we should have anticipated that, because even if it's not working as intended, because there's clearly something kind of wrong with it, but it's also like, it's a beer that randomizes your loadout. It's not. Who the hell is ever going to want to play with that in every mission? It's going to be something that you just use every now and then, just because you feel like it. I don't think exactly. I don't think anyone's going to be playing with this like dozens of missions in a row. That's not the point. So,
especially since, as mentioned, a sizable part of the content of the game, or it was with the equipment, is you actively interacting and using it, which is obviously, I think, going to be a point with what we experience, since using
is that the ice cream van?
I think it is. Yeah, one day I'll get that fucking ice cream. I also didn't think you'd be able to hear it, but that just says how loud it is. But yeah, basically, I really enjoyed experimenting with the Sabata and a little bit of the other stuff. Like, that is active experimentation with new stuff. The Randomizer isn't really that.
Yeah,
except
so,
it kind of really fucks around with some things to the point where it is new.
It is in a sense, but I do want to sort of take back what I sort of said about Axis Criminals, because he was this is paraphrasing, of course, but we really latched onto something that he said about the randomizer, where he was basically saying we're sort of grasping at straws by calling something like the randomizer our equipment for season 4, and we were like, no, you're not grasping at straws, because that's what it is. I don't think the randomizer really fills the role that even the grenade filled. You know?
Yeah, that was a take you could only really have when you looked at the randomizer from a distance and not actually had it in your game. Like, because he played with it, and I think he did come to the fair assessment that, yeah, it ain't it.
I would love to be
Not
not forced. I'd love to be incentivized to use it though in some way. To be honest, um, even just milestones, because I don't know if a daily challenge would be good, but a daily challenge would still work because if you really hate randomizer, which I don't, but you could still reset the daily challenge even if it was a daily challenge, and that is the first. Obviously, I still think randomizer is a good addition in general. It's actually a really good idea for a new beer as well. But
yeah.
when it comes to the first genuine criticism, I think just the lack of attention given to the daily challenges is something to speak of. In the sense that I don't think they thought about them at all this season. Because not only do I think every season should at least bring one to do with its content, I feel like there should be more in general. I feel like
Yeah,
more interesting ones in general.
I would take that a slight step further in that with the milestones as well, not adding a single new milestone. It really gives off the impression that this season didn't add content. Because it
Yes.
did.
Yeah, it did.
It literally, in two parts of the game, nothing. Like, normally something is there, or if anything, a couple things appear, and, like, it's like, oh, new season, do these things, and you'll get stuff, right? Like, get the perk stars, or get a script. But neither occurred this
Yeah,
season.
I can't really deny that because the rocket boots are definitively the equipment that season 4 brings. At the same time, they still don't fill the role that previous equipment editions of seasons have brought. And the only reason I'm okay with saying that is because we've gotten grenades as well. It hasn't literally just been 2 seasons of weapons. Because if it was just that, then I'd have slightly different expectations for the next one. But we've gotten something grenades as well. And that point is, those editions are, in my opinion, defined, or at least what makes them valuable is that they are not just things that are random like the rocket boots, which I don't have a problem with them taking a different approach. But the point is, those things like grenades and weapons are part of your kit. It's a very different thing. Things that you can choose and make your loadout out of is the kind of thing that people have come to expect, which I think it's justified because that is the trend that has been set. So it's very fair for people to expect those kind of additions. And season 4 didn't bring those additions. It brings changes, balance changes that actually fulfill that niche more than previous balance changes have, I think, though. At the same time, those balance changes are slightly, what's the word? Last minute? Except for Sabata. But do you know what I mean, though? I feel like the balance changes made here are feel more like new stuff than previous balance changes. There's something to be said there, in that it's all been sort of quite significant overclock facelifts, which is the general term. Some of them it's just a flat buff, some of them it's like a proper rework, and I really noticed that with things like Rocket Barrage and Double Barrel, which have actually given me a lot of mileage this season so far. I've actually had a great time using those, and those are some of the best things they've done. And then also the Sabata change, which we could talk about that for a while, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, they added content and they added equipment content in the term of, like, balancing things quite radically, like a couple things quite radically. But I don't know, it is a bad look with just the milestones and the thingy, and yeah, honestly, the randomizer is slightly disappointing. As in, I do not want to use it ever until they fixed it.
Mm.
Like, I get the random part, but if I get plasma burst and missiles, which is what I did get the one time we did it, I want that instead of whatever the hell I got. I genuinely, I could not tell what my hurricane was. It might have just been a normal hurricane because it was not plasma burst and missiles.
I could not tell what it was from my perspective. Certainly, it was like plasma burst. It wasn't. It didn't look like plasma bursters, but sometimes they behave like plasma bursters. But also sometimes they just stuck into the ground. And I don't. I assume it's probably not what you were seeing, but it was very interesting to look at because it didn't really. It didn't mean anything. It was just a bunch of nonsense. And then I didn't have that issue, but a lot of people have been getting the Zukovs with like explosive embedded detonators, but with like no ammo penalty. That's been something that's been occurring a lot, which is that specifically is kind of cool. And maybe there's something there in the idea of double overclocks. Which is always an interesting thought exercise. People bring that up sometimes on Reddit. It's just like, if you could pair like 2 overclocks together, what would they be? And you know, that's the kind of thing I can imagine Ghost Ship being like, oh, that would be like a shit ton of like work and stuff like that. But it's like, well, yeah, I'm sure it would, but I think they do sometimes disregard things that could add a lot of mileage to the game, though. I mean, not that they've disregarded that specifically, but that really could. If it's some kind of system where you could like pick 2 overclocks for a weapon, but I don't know, maybe you get no upgrades or something. I don't know. That's how you could balance it, but then it could even be something else entirely. I don't know, and I don't know if they feel like maybe they have done stuff in sort of like increasing like long-term attention with this update by making certain things really rare. I don't know if that's the mindset there with something like the rocket boots. Probably not, right? But it's like, that's the thing. When you've played as many missions as we have in season 4 so far, we've played for about 12 hours maybe at least each, and not seen haven't seen rocket boots in a mission, right? And it's like, I don't know what to make of that. It's just like, are they supposed to be that rare? We sort of agree that it's like they can't be worth being this rare. They can't be that good, you know? And I don't think they are.
Especially since, from what I've heard, you're not guaranteed to get them at any good point in the mission, right? Like, you could easily get them at the end of a giant long Morkai mission. It's like, what are you going to
Exactly. I think there is definitely a case to be made for, and I know that they're principled against this. It's not like they didn't think about it, but there is absolutely a case to be made for being able to guarantee them in some capacity. And my mind goes towards something like an anomaly. And anomalies have been sort of discussed a lot between us in regards to this season, because we sort of agree that it added 2 things that both could have been anomalies but aren't, in the sense that they didn't have to be as well. Not that they were necessarily missed opportunities. It just shows that you can make more content like that. Rocket boots could arguably be called another form of low gravity, except it actually takes the form of a power up that you don't know that you're going to find. At the same time, I think there's still an argument to be made that it could have an anomaly attached to it as well, and you could even make it something that is like excluded from assignments. I think you could do that. I'm pretty sure you could. So you could have these missions that guarantee you to find jet boots, but you would only be doing it just for fun, just for the experience of playing with jet boots. You wouldn't be able to progress assignments through these missions. That's one option. I mean,
I think they are pretty firmly against, that the guaranteed jet boots. But I think there is something they could do. Jet boots only spawn in the spawn
room. Well,
is it guaranteed?
Almost definitely.
It guarantees that if you get them, you will actually use them for the mission.
Yeah.
Right? The mission is a jet boots mission. Instead of doing an entire mission and finding it at the very end, or never finding it, because people would, bump into it if it's in the spawn room. And every fucking thing has a spawn room. The one place where you can guarantee it being a thing.
I wouldn't say that refineries or point extractions have spawn rooms, but you know where to put them on the refinery or point extraction.
I guess
it's pretty obvious. You don't need the spawn room because you've got, the thing. That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, I think that's I think that would make sense. I think
because while it's still not guaranteed, at least you know whether or not you got it early in, and if you really want rocket boots, you could probably then just reload it until you get them.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. We don't know how easy they are to miss. As in, we don't know if we've missed a pair. Obviously, you wouldn't know if you've missed them. As in, we don't know if it's possible to miss them, like, really. If it's like really, if like a decently aware person could actually miss them, we don't know that. But if they could, I would have to say they should not be easy to miss. But I don't know if they are.
I've not heard any complaints about not finding them, but then again, or like that
But
anyone.
you wouldn't know, would you? You wouldn't know.
Well, there could be some people that are like, I almost didn't find these rocket boots. How the hell are you supposed to find them? Stuff like that.
Right?
I've never
Yeah,
heard,
that could happen. Yeah. Huh.
but yeah, no, I mean, yeah, we never found them. Even if they were in a mission, we never found it.
Yeah, and
Also, also always
so my other idea was like that you could it would sort of be a sort of blend of what I they normally think what you just said, where maybe if you find rocket boots in a mission, you would get like a ticket or something that you could use to like go into. It would give you like one like chance to go into a mission with them or something. So it's like one rocket boots found randomly in the mission equals one that you can guarantee as well, or something like that. I feel like that could be kind of neat. I don't know how that would work with deep dives, but then it's like then they wouldn't have to change the way they actually are presented in the caves. They could still be completely random in terms of where they spawn, but then you would have control over the one next time that you get to use them by finding one randomly. Um, I don't know. Maybe
yeah,
that's something.
still wouldn't have one.
What? Well, yeah, and then yeah, we still wouldn't. Yeah, which we should. I don't. We could move on from the rocket boots at the same time. We can't really speak to how they work. Really, I've played around with them in Space Rig, but that doesn't really represent. I don't think that represents anything really. Um, not truly. But yeah, It is supposed to be a very big part of this season. Clearly, or at least it's one of the headliner pieces of content. Right? It's in the key art. It's I think it's the second thing in the patch notes. Let's see. No, it's actually a bit further down. Oh well, either way, it was clearly a really big part that they pushed, especially from a marketing perspective. Um, because, as we know, they didn't market this season until until the season itself was revealed. They did not market it as a rock puck season at all, which made it feel like all the other stuff that they showed was going to be much more prominence, which included the jet boots. I think what did end up being of much more prominence was, of course, the other new enemies, which is and that it's fair because these are the things that were on the roadmap. Actually, just the Singtail and the Septic Spreader. That's all the roadmap represented. The original season 4 roadmap, which is kind of scary to think about because it's not. There's not a lot. It is just two generic new enemies, right? And that's not much. But their presence is felt. But maybe that's because there's only two of them. They sort of hyper focus on them. Even then, they're not equal as well. I don't think in their presence.
I mean, right. I think, obviously you mentioned like focusing, but I would say, and this might be a slight negative, I'm not sure, but the Stingtail, whenever they are a thing in your game, you know it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's because I mentioned it. Like, I mean, because we got them quite a bit in like our first day of playing. Like they were in like most of our games. But during the second day, yesterday, they were barely there until we played with Tom, and that was like his first time fighting them as well. Because I realized that they hadn't been a thing. They were not in our missions, which is fine and good. That's the point of them.
Yeah.
Is that they're not always there. They're in the pool, which as
In the
opposed to the
pool.
Septic Spreader, which is there quite often, from as far as I can tell. Although, actually, now that I think about it, the mission I did earlier today, I only did like one, and it didn't have either. It was just a normal mission. No rock,
Whoa.
none of them, and I think that was fine. It is what it is. But yeah, with the Stingtails, they don't let you not know that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
They change the situation so drastically, and they are very deadly. You can kill quite a lot of them, but a lot more of them will spawn, and all they need is an instance to screw you over big time. And there is often an instance, like just by like being above you, pulling you up. That often is
That's
kind of
my
lethal.
favorite thing though, about them actually. To be honest,
Yeah,
I mean, yes. Last night I had a situation where I was actually saved by a Stingtail, because it actually pulled me. It was an exploder infestation, so I think you can see where this is going. It just pulled me over a group of exploders that were coming towards me. I was like, oh, that's nice. So yeah, Stingtails have like a really, really interesting presence that I think is overall good. I will say, I think when they are present, they might be a bit too common. Well, it feels like,
Yeah.
as in, because not every enemy is like this. They occupy a very strange position in terms of the frequency at which you encounter them. In that, it feels like when they are in a mission, they're as common as as guards, which is
There's
fairly
always
common. But
one.
they're also not in every mission. But when they are, they're like, they're like I said, they're basically as common. They feel like they're as common as guards, which I don't think is quite right. I think you should get like one, like or two per like swarm, pretty much, because they do really fulfill their role quite well. But I don't think you need as many as the game seems to be throwing at you. To be honest, um, I haven't really encountered like more than one at a time though. I don't think.
I've seen two.
Yeah, that might be a bit much. But what they add as from a Goku just changing the dynamics of combat is tangible. Like it really has had an effect in terms of bringing something new to a new enemy role. Like it is genuinely a good addition in that sense.
Yeah,
Like it's
and it's made quite a few other enemies a lot more lethal, like in proximity. Like
bulk detonators.
just all the enemy, yeah, well, all the enemies that we've gotten used to and know how to avoid, we are now then put just straight back into the like firing range.
Yeah, because when a Singtail is present, suddenly your ways of avoiding those enemies are countered by its ability to do the opposite, which is
yeah,
bring you into their, you know, presence, I guess, which renders the Stingtail a really interesting priority target, especially because it's quite tanky, and it makes it sound quite overpowered. But I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. I think it could be it could, if anything could change, it could be a bit less tanky. That's the only thing I would probably change in terms of its stats, basically. But aside from that, it's like a genuinely balanced addition, and I'm pretty happy to see them. Although I definitely don't want them in every mission, because they work very well as a novelty, and that's why I'm sort of brought up the fact that there's quite a lot of them. I don't think that will work forever. I think they shouldn't be ultra common, which they almost are at this point. So not in every mission, but they're very common, and they shouldn't be very. They should be on like the lower end almost. They should be like not much more common than a bulk detonator, in my opinion, almost, or maybe a bit more common, but still. Because I think about oppressors. You get multiple oppressors if you're going to get oppressors in a mission. I almost feel like they should be slightly rarer than oppressors. That's what my heart sort of tells me. I don't know why, but take them on their own and actually encountering them, great stuff.
Not that rare.
I don't know.
I think maybe slightly rare, like slightly rarer than Praetorians or something. Where you would maybe encounter one or two per swarm if they're in the swarm.
Yeah, that's exactly what it should be.
It literally is like every time you would kill one, another one would spawn in.
Yeah.
There's like it always feels like there's no real point in killing one because another one is just going to come along and be an issue again.
Spreaders, however, would absolutely justify being encountered in larger numbers, and I have encountered them in larger numbers. I've encountered like 3 at a time once, although they're not always like that. Strangely enough, I like the spreaders a lot from like the way they look more than anything else. I think, and the way they look includes actually the look of their attacks too. I don't know. It's like very. It just stands out, basically. That's what it is. It just stands out, like really bright red goo. Almost looks like red sugar. In fact, I've actually seen people say they've mistaken it for red sugar, which is kind of dumb, I think. And yeah, so the spreaders themselves, if you've actually been touched by the goo, you'd know this. It's quite deadly. But the spreaders themselves aren't that deadly, if we're being honest. And
they feel bugged in how little they actually attack.
They feel bugged.
Around, and then you kill them, and then they die, and that's like
yeah. I'm not sure if they are bugged or not. It's interesting. I think I don't know what they could do with them. At the same time, they are a welcome presence, but I sort of describe them. They're almost more of a visual flair than anything else to a swarm. Almost. I can't say that the danger levels of a swarm have been increased by them being present. But maybe they shouldn't be. Maybe they should just be a different type of spitter. But then again, they feel substantially less deadly than an acid spitter because acid spitters are far more aggressive and far more accurate. So the spreader doesn't really match that. The spreader really is just a disruptive thing where it just creates sort of places you can't go. It feels like more than anything else, and obviously that's part of that is due to it releasing septic, if that's the right thing to call it, when it dies. Which I'm happy that they included that, and obviously you can obviously eliminate that from happening as well through various means. Something I always forget about is that like, the breach cutter actually stops them from doing that because it uses like disintegrate damage, which actually deletes enemies when it kills them. So they literally just evaporate, they disintegrate out in they go into thin air.
Once got saved by that. Oh, I think it was with the flamethrower, which I didn't know really did that. It like incinerated the spreader that was like on him, and he was on low enough health to where if it had dropped its acid, he would have like died instantly. I mean, he died soon after, but he didn't die thanks to that.
Yeah,
so, yeah. I think it is an issue, but not in the way that they really intended.
yeah,
like,
but I don't know. The spreader, it's like I don't really know what to say about it because it's like I find its presence very welcome, even though it's not much of a threat. But maybe I wouldn't like it if it's more of a threat.
A weird acid spritter / exploder that doesn't kill itself, but it kills itself by just approaching you far too quickly and being far too killable. Like it just feels like a really stupid acid spritter.
It does. That's actually not a bad way to put it at all. It does feel like stupid. Yeah. I suppose that should bring us to how much we feel that's really changed up swarms. And it's like you have to think about the fact that we haven't got enemies that partake in normal swarms in like when was it? Yeah, it's been 2 years. It's been more than 2 years actually. It's been about 2 years and 4 months actually. Last time we got this was all the way back in New Horizons with the Trijul and the Brundle. That's actually the last time we got enemies like this, and it's almost kind of like the same thing. It's like they got 2 Macteras, then get 2 Glyphids now. But how much they've really done is a big question, and in a lot of ways, I feel like they have done a lot, but it's almost like the Stingtail alone is doing too much, and it should be better distributed. Better yet, among more than 2 new enemies. Of course, we know that there was going to be a 3rd one, and it seemingly will make not a comeback. It seemingly will make its way into the game, the Glyphid Stalker. So I just wonder if it was I don't even know if using the term like right move, whether or not it was the right move is the right way to word this, but should they have made more? Basically, is what I'm trying to ask. Should there have been more generic enemies in this update? If that was a main point of the update.
Well, it's hard to say that it was inherently the main point. It was simply a point.
It's not hard to say when you look at the roadmap.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean much.
It's not definitively the biggest part, but it's not hard to say it was meant to be important.
Yeah, it was meant to be important, but it was also just the only content that they were willing to disclose, essentially. Like with the weapons in the past seasons.
Well, they can't disclose the rocket boots. You know, they did mention the jetpacks, which people were like, they were joking. No, they weren't.
That's true. they way out the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's fine, I think, because it was just a light touch up, and I think a light touch up was all it needed, really. Like, you don't really want the normal pool to get stupid big.
No.
And I think that's something that they've been tempering with, I mean, even that last one, they only really added 2, right? And they've added 2 again after 2 years. And I feel like preferably we wouldn't get 2 every 2 years and maybe just 1 a year. That's like slowly, constantly spicing things up. Just like, I don't know, something more along those lines, because it's not really an obvious and felt thing generally, because the point of them is that we get used to them and it becomes the new normal.
Yeah.
And they need to fit in perfectly in that. Which is why, once again, I think anything we've said about them now, while it's still true, them as content will need to be reanalyzed in like a couple months, right? Because if they are still like a thing, like those that Stingtail, it's a real like important thing, then that's kind of failing at its job.
Yeah, well,
And
season four sort of has like it brings with it like on its own terms, even if you divorce it from like season three, it brings with it on its own terms the dichotomy of adding new enemies in the normal pool and in a bubble, which none of the seasons have done so far. All the seasons, when it comes to enemies, the seasons have all brought things that are in bubbles, or they're either in the seasonal bubble or they're in their own bubble, like the Nemesis, which can spawn anyway, but it's not part of swarms, you know. But yeah, season four really represents like literally both things at once. And oh shit, I forgot what I was going to say. I guess the point of, I think what I was going to say is that the generic enemies are the kind of thing that should blend in eventually. That their novelty should wear off. But the things in the bubbles, I guess their novelty shouldn't wear off. I guess at least until the end of the season. I'm not sure, but I guess we should definitely move on to that because of all the new Rockbox enemies themselves, aside from the Corruptor, and I'm sort of generally good, generally good. It's particularly particularly in the case of Lithophage Outbreak itself, because Lithophage Outbreak has actually gotten more interesting this season, which I did not expect, by the way. I did not, because we're still saddled with essentially the same main piece of gameplay content. I don't know if I just said essentially. I shouldn't have said that. It is literally the same, except it has changed in a noticeable way. Not in what you're actually doing, but the presence of the new types of Rockbox enemies, and more so just the presence of it being more difficult to clean a contagion spike has upped the engagement of that noticeably. Not by an insane amount, but noticeably. And that's good. And I think that the choices, though, of the Rockbox enemies, I don't know if they could have been better, but not all of them really stand out that much. I don't know. Mainly the Exploders. The Exploders really haven't really had an effect, in my opinion. But I sort of noticed the other one. Because all the other ones are much more like different in sort of how they position themselves and like movement, like Spitters. They're on the ceiling, So I notice them more. I don't know.
I think that there's an argument to where the Exploders were essentially added to make you panic when you're cleaning the thing, because I mean that's the only time I notice them really. I mean I think we've had like probably we've had have we even had a Rockbox swarm like normally?
We've had like one or two maybe, and that was even then only an If-Age Outbreak, which I sort of want to talk about the other thing at some point. But
yeah, but I haven't really noticed like any of that stuff in normal Swarm, so I've only really experienced all the new Rockbox stuff, or those two in particular, the Spitter and the Exploder, in terms of clearing a spike and then suddenly a bunch of enemies spawn. And in those points in time, Exploders have kind of caught me off guard a couple times. Like while I'm foaming, I'm like, I'm gonna go for just this last, like, suck up this last bit, and then boom, I'm rockboxed because I'm already kind of all the way there. I've been standing around the thing, and then the exploder goes off. And I think that if that was their intention, that kind of works. I mean, obviously, it's just a new enemy in the normal pool, but if it was specifically added to make when you're clearing the thing a lot more deadly in the short term, like you need to like clear it, everything wakes up, then get the hell out of there and fight him normally, or you're going to be screwed. That's fair enough. And then obviously with the spitter being like on the ceiling, it's just a completely new angle of which the rock box is approaching you from.
it's not even inherently like more dangerous on its own than like other Rockbox enemies. It's almost like it's just there to draw your attention, draw your eye away from like the bulk of the horde almost. I don't know.
Yeah, draw your eye upwards so the exploder can sneak in, or vice versa. You're looking down at the exploder, and so you're getting slowly petted by the acid splitter.
Yeah.
I feel like they're a pretty good combo. And then with the Grunt and Praetorians thrown in just for add measure, like in good measure, but it hurts. It works. Clearing the things are now a lot more mindful, right? Because as I said before, it was just clear it, move on, clear it, move on, whatever. But now it's like, are we ready to clear it? Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, is
It's
everyone
much more.
prepared?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's actually good because we sort of we sort of done this thing basically where it's like, I mean, foaming isn't as much like a two-man job. It can be, but we've sort of like realized that vacuuming should be always be a two-man job because you should be doing it as fast as dwarvenly possible, I suppose. And we didn't talk about the goo bombers, which actually are pretty good as well. I think they work. They're goo bombers though. And they're just sort of they're once again just sort of the different sort of positioning type thing, same as the acid spitter, but a different type. Just like it's flying now. And then that sort of brings me to the breeder, which is the one that I am going to be critical of because, frankly, the Rockbox breeder has literally zero presence. Because not just because they seem to be extraordinarily rare, but because it posed literally no threat when we did encounter one. And so I'm just going to immediately jump in and say it should have been a mini boss of sorts, right? You've got the Corruptor as a boss. The Rockbox needs its oppressor, and the breeder isn't that, but it should be, in my opinion.
Yeah. Plus, like, and this was my main thing that kind of pissed me off is we are in a life or phage mission, right? Life or phage infestation, and there are 3 to 2, probably more than 2, just normal breeders chilling, and not a fucking Rockbox one inside.
Exactly.
Like, surely
So,
that should not be allowed.
So,
Any breeder that spawns in a life or phage mission should be a Rockbox breeder.
Well, here's what I want to say about that. Here's what I want to say about that is breeders obviously don't spawn in swarms. They're they're actually more tied to cave generation, which means, as far as we know, you're never going to get one outside of a lithophage outbreak. Okay, okay. Sorry, not sorry about that. Maybe sorry about that. I don't know how it's going to sound. I assume it's not going to blend perfectly together. An unexpected hiccup. What?
But literally, it would be that as soon as it cut, the recording probably ended, and then I'll just paste this part, and then boop, there it is.
Yeah, I think that's true, but maybe what we should have done is like left a pause or something, and it wouldn't like literally be like, I don't know. I stopped talking and then immediately start saying something else like mid word. Either way, I ran out of disk space. I feel like there's something I can do to prevent this and still keep all our recordings. But nevertheless,
external drive.
Exactly, or like OneDrive or something. I don't know. Either way, we were on the subject of the Rockbox breeder, which we shouldn't be able to say much about, because I've only seen. Actually, have you seen more than one so far?
No.
It was just the one. I didn't really get up close to it. Anyway, what I remember.
But we killed one.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember exactly what I was saying. It was about how breeders don't spawn in swarms. They're sort of part of almost more tied to cave generation than anything else. So as far as we know, a Rockbox one is only going to spawn in lithophage outbreak, which means you are 100% right that every breeder in a lithophage outbreak should be a Rockbox one. But as far as we know, they can't spawn outside the warning ether. So I think every breeder should have a chance of being a Rockbox one. Basically, is what I'm saying. I don't know how, if that's a bit too much, but obviously, as we know now, we can get Rockbox swarms in normal missions. Not that that's happened yet. But to be fair on that front, and it's going to be a to be fair, it's going to lead into a criticism. But most of the missions we've played have been lithophage outbreaks so far, and the ones that we haven't have pretty much all been point extraction and salvage ops for some reason. So, and the only ones where you can get unique swarms are mining expedition and oil refining or on-site refining. And there's the criticism. Is that it's limited to those two things, and this extends beyond just Rockbox swarms. By the way, this extends to every unique swarm type. Something which Tyler was ignorant to up till quite recently, weren't you? But
yeah, I just assumed it would be in all of them. Since why wouldn't you?
Well, think of it. No, if you'd thought about it, you would rule off certain ones like elimination, industrial sabotage, salvage op. That's what I mean. So, but you get swarm announcements, and therefore you get swarms on egg hunts and point extraction. And obviously, it's like, I guess Egg Hunt's the one where it would make the least sense because it's like glyphid eggs, but you still get Mactera and Curonars into swarms, so there's not much of an argument. But point extraction, absolutely, because it's just chock full of normal swarms, even if they go unannounced, like, or they go unwarned. They're announced as they start, but even then, they should still have the capacity for that. And obviously, there was it was a very suppressed note, but it was still in the patch notes that we can get rockpox swarms in normal missions. But even then, they did go on to actually reduce the chance of that happening. And I take, I was about to say I take serious issue, and I do, but it's like, obviously, in the condensed discussion about Deep Rock, I don't take it like, seriously in terms of world issues. But if we're talking about Deep Rock, I do take it quite a big issue, their lack of confidence in their own content almost, right? And I feel like season 4 speaks to that quite a bit when you think about how rare some of these things are, like the Breeder, or even like the Rocket Boots and the Corruptor. I think the Rocket Boots is a different one, where it's like they don't want people to have that power up all the time. But even though the Rockpox, in my opinion, has, like, I shouldn't say ascended, but it's been brought up to a level of much more interesting and engaging to encounter, I think they would have a right to give it more presence in the game, but it doesn't really feel like they have. It has more presence in Niflfage Outbreak, which it should, but it deserves a bit more presence elsewhere, at least for the duration of Season 4, because this isn't going to last forever. So I want to see more Rockpox while it lasts, I guess. And even then, the Corruptor itself is a whole another box of frogs, because I haven't even fought one. Yeah. And we don't know if it's we don't know if it's something that you would want to encounter all the time. I'd imagine probably not, though. That's the thing. And it's sort
of the little live that we've gathered, right? We've seen one, but we couldn't get around to killing him because he spawned in a room with a Corlock and a ton of other shit.
Yeah, that was pretty intense. Yeah,
like kind of screwed to begin with, and we did end up failing before we even like engaged him. And then I met him earlier today with just a random, and he was stuck. He got stuck in a small cave, and so we just kind of sprayed him down, and he couldn't do anything about it. And then I just spammed breach cutters because I couldn't actually like hit his open weak point or whatever, and just killed him like that. So it was barely a fight to begin with. We've yet to experience it
Corruptor as intended.
And with the little have seen, those puddles on the floor are deadly as hell.
I did notice that, because I noticed actually when we did encounter one, it was obviously, that's something that it does anyway. That's not an attack. I mean, I think it is still counted as an attack, but it's like
He does like little spores. I've seen it's like little ball floats through the air and lands, and then demon pit appears.
Yeah, I think the Breeder should have a bit of that going on as well, by the way, because obviously the Breeder just spews out larvae, which is kind of cool for when it dies, actually, when it just like sort of just explodes a bunch of larvae. But maybe it should have some kind of, it doesn't have to be infected shockers, it could use these spores or something, or it could infect terrain beneath it even. I don't know. I think there should be an element of that to the Breeder. It could almost be like a mini Corruptor of sorts. But yeah, what I noticed when I stood in it for a little bit unintentionally, is that trail actually applies 2 status effects. Because it infects you, which deals damage, but it also it just like poisons you as well. I had the neurotoxin symbol when I was standing in it. I was like, I see why this is an issue. I see why this is so deadly.
Yeah, like a graze of it like halfway infects you and like gets rid of your shield in like an instant. I'm like, oh. And when he was stuck, he's been stuck there for like a minute because we had to fight a normal swarm. And when we came back, all the stuff that he left around had like the rockpox. There was patches of the died stuff, but the entire area around him was just pure death puddle because he had just planted it all in the same places. Like if you had like a charged sludge pump shot like 5 times in the same area, like caked it in death puddle. Which in that tight hallway was not pleasant. So that is a bit of a deadly part to him, but from what the very little I can tell, that's basically the only deadly part to it. Like his smash attack, while deadly, is ultimately the same as the stuff we normally have. Do not get close to them; they will kill you. That's like rule one in this game, right? Like so many enemies use that logic. The nemesis, the bulks of both types, and it's just a rule of thumb for all the other ones. You know, not many enemies have ranged attacks, and the ones that do are most deadly at close range still, like getting hit by all three Tridor shots. It's just the normal rule of thumb of don't get near, and he seems fairly undeadly. Until his final stage, which he then does some sort of other attack, which is like a longer range ground pound charge shot attack, which surprised and killed me.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. So even when he was stuck, he still fought back. Plus, we then got jumped by a bunch of Macteras, which is obviously is a thing with enemies like that, right? Is they're not the only thing that's around. As example of when we had to fight him and a Korlok, except we obviously didn't fight him because that would be stupid. And it's its difficulty should or is, since we obviously again we haven't really fought them, based on the terrain and spawnings of other things around them, which is
Yeah.
kind of what's up with events.
So
like
that second part, is the thing that which possibly unjustly, given I haven't killed one yet, but maybe I might be critical of immediately. Is it because I could already potentially say, actually this could actually be what I think about it already, is that it's not the kind of thing that seems like fair to encounter in like complicated scenarios. And the reason why I think that might be fair to say is because, and also could also possibly immediately be countered, is the fact that the Corruptor's operating on a bit of a different wavelength for a seasonal event, right? A meteorite, and this I do like the meteorites in the sense that they were already kind of upping the game a little bit in terms of being a hazard before even, actually doing the event itself. A meteorite can be a noticeable hazard. It does force you to clear out an area. Obviously, in some cases, it can be a boon, and it will kill everything in that area twice. But it still lands, and then it's no longer an issue unless you decide to deal with it. The Corruptor is operating on a bit of a different wavelength in terms of, first of all, being mobile, but then again, the Prospector is as well. I don't know. Maybe I was onto something, maybe I wasn't. I
think it's not entirely valid because, as noticed in that engagement, right, the Korlok, albeit was the difficult situation there, but also the terrain wasn't exactly the best thing in the world, and there was tons of other enemies, cave leeches, spitballers, the normal immediate swarm of
and I don't think we were in danger of like aggravating the Corruptor. I think you have to start foaming it, right?
You have to just hit foam him, like literally.
Exactly, but it was still an issue because of the infectious trail.
Yeah, which is deadly, but ultimately he is slightly kinder in that regard. In that, Korlok, you enter the room with a Korlok, it's gonna piss him off, and that's it, right? That's it. that's it. You've got to now fight a Korlok or run away or push through and get through to the next room, because fuck that noise, right? Like he dominates the room. But with the Corruptor, ultimately you decide when you pick the fight. And you would it can still screw you over in non-fighting form, but that's the price you pay for not killing him already, right? Like if he is going to be such a big issue with all the trail he leaves behind, you should kill him so he stops him from doing that.
Yeah, but it's like in that situation we could not prioritize like that.
Yeah, he was not the biggest threat in the room, right? The Korlok owned that slot because the Korlok was an unavoidable oppressive force. Meanwhile, the Corruptor, slight annoyance until you piss him off, right? And like slight risk in making everything else slightly more dangerous. Which I don't know. I think I wish that we had that engagement later on after having fought him a couple times, because I think that be a really cool situation if we actually had like a hold on it.
Absolutely.
And a Corruptor in the same room is a really interesting dynamic we could have experienced, but we're not prepared for it.
Yeah,
or physically.
I talk about the RNG in like one of the things I love about the RNG is how it can fuck you up. At the same time, I would in this particular situation. See, I do not mind the idea of encountering something you haven't encountered before and having a hard time against it. We didn't, but it wasn't the corruptor that we had a hard time against. That's the thing. I would not
We
have
never.
minded if we engaged the corruptor on its own and got our asses handed to us. I would love
Yeah.
that personally, but that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. And I do want to point out, sort of
The old reliable.
in light of all the speculation that occurred, it's kind of funny that the first time we found the corruptor was alongside the Corlock. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that before, because obviously that was like a big thing. Yeah, I still don't know how the corruptor comes from Contagion Spike. I still don't know. Like, where to get the teeth? It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I am still wondering about how much is it meant to really differ from other events, because it's clearly rarer than other seasonal events. You take any of them, it's so much rarer, right? And that's
Yeah, I mean,
because
we've had.
I think, and this is why I really can't like shut down the people who are saying things like this is season 3.5, because the main gameplay content is still Live Phage Outbreak. The main events are arguably still the meteorites. The corruptor is sort of just on top of that. It's like it's rarer than those things. It's rarer than the meteorites. So it is more so, even though it is a seasonal event, it does give you play cards, which then leads to script, and the play cards just give you performance points in general. It is still more occupying the Rockpox boss role more than a seasonal event role, maybe? I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, kind of. Maybe. I don't know. I think it's.
But I feel like it must be if it's meant to be like the main thing. It can't, because it
It's an
can't
event.
just be a seasonal event if it's like the main thing of the season almost.
Yeah, but like the Nemesis was the main thing of the season and wasn't even an event, right? Like what? Like surely, if anything, the fact that it's an event is a step up, in like level of content. I don't see the issue there really. We found it weird that the Nemesis wasn't a boss tier event, and now that we get a boss tier event, we're like, oh, whoa,
But I
whoa.
think season 2 still benefited though from having another event as well that wasn't a boss. I don't know. I guess you already have multiple events for the Rockbox, is fine. Like it's actually totaled up to the same amount for both. But the small meteors are a bit of different kind of thing. They're not as much of an event as the others. So there's a very strong, well, maybe not that strong, but there's a case to be made that they could have made another event as well, and sort of just treated the corruptor as like a nemesis type thing, but still made it drop play cards. I don't know. That might have helped them a little bit because the reason why that might have helped them is because I could see a boss being propped up as something not literally on the same level, but almost in the same ballpark as something like a new mission type or a warning. Because we've got an update like the update that added the Corlock, where the Corlock was like, this is like the main thing. A random boss that you encounter is almost like it's a very major piece of content, something like a Betsy or a Corlock. I felt like the Corruptor could have been that, and then you also get a seasonal event on top of that. And then I feel like maybe that might have. Maybe some people wouldn't have said some things that they said. Not everyone.
Yeah, Harry, they'd say it because there's 2 events. There's more content there. That's what you're saying. If there was more content, people wouldn't be complaining about less content. Like, yeah.
I just saying the Corruptor doesn't truly feel like the main thing because it's an event. That's the thing. I might just, but that's just based on feelings though. That might not be logistically true.
But
But
you
that's definitely the
felt
way I
that
feel.
Nemesis was it. But the Nemesis, like, it didn't drop a data cell. It wasn't an event. It was literally just like a breeder, right? The Nemesis was just a breeder. Something that spawned in the cage before you got there. That was what it was. And it's not even like an event type thing. That got a pass. I don't know where the argument's coming from. Essentially, it's at least a step above the Nemesis in terms of value, content, quotation marks, or like tier of content, quotation marks. Like it is an event at least. I think event is like the tier below actual like warnings. But yeah, tier below warnings and things, I think, is an event, is the way I see it. So at least it's that rather than just new enemy sometimes.
But okay,
Ultimately,
no,
found more corruptors than, I don't know, fucking nemesises.
What?
Not saying much.
What?
Yeah, we've not seen a nemesis in so fucking long, have we?
Whoa!
And would you rather it be like that or like an event where, even though we've met a prospector, right?
Yeah, hold on, you got a point there about how just about how rare Nemesis is at the moment. Hmm. Okay. No, I mean I don't think I ever really had a problem with the Corruptor being an event, but as in it could still be one. I think there was still. I was basically just saying that they should have probably done another one, but that is just very very obtusely asking for more content, which isn't the right way to criticize usually, especially for Deep Rock. It's not just like there should have been more. I think in a lot of cases with what season 4 brought, I think more would have been in its favor for obvious reasons. But I don't. But when I say something like that, I don't mean more in the sense of where's all the big stuff. I think some of the things that season 4 added, there could have been more of those things, and generic enemies is the thing that comes to mind. And obviously we have the Glyphid Stalker that was cut, but I really think that would have done them a lot of favors getting something like that into the game, into the update. It would have, but at the same time, I don't know how much that would have changed, and I don't really have that good of a handle on what like the season 4 consensus is at the moment. Anyway, to be honest, I really don't know what people are like, what people truly think. But that's because you can't really put it down to one opinion either. There's always a consensus, but at the same time, I think people are sort of, now that everyone's got it, the consensus is sort of, I guess, formulating as we speak. I don't know.
Consensus is give me a minute and play. That's the consensus. Like they're trying to reinforce or like rework their ideas that they had before it, right? Where they saw the jet boots and they were like, "This shit looks incredibly cool. I look forward to it so much." And then they spent like 20 games not getting it, and then when they get it, they realize it's kind of disappointing. Something like that. Like that stuff is being forming, or vice versa. People thought it looked mid and game breaking, realizing that it was, or not mid and game breaking doesn't really work, but realizing that yeah, it's just a cool addition. So I think people are changing their minds currently, and often they don't publicly say that kind of stuff. They come out and say that I hate this shit or I love this shit. They don't tend to talk about the transitional period, or like that they're in it.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I kind of want to talk about actually. I kind of want to talk about the assignments actually, only because this has the most going on in terms of story, like genuinely, which is kind of not something I thought I'd bring up, and it's sort of going to come around to a point of I actually think season 4 has done a genuinely good job on a thematic level, kind of, certainly better than season 2. And honestly, in a lot of ways, better than season 3 because of that, because it feels like it's actually taken the Rockpox in a more tangible direction. It doesn't feel like exponentially more threatening, but it definitely feels like more of something. You get the impression that the Rockpox is changing and almost acting, especially, and this is a really small thing, by the way, but I did notice it. It's with the contagion spikes. There's just a bit of like just a bit more visual variety with them, as in you have some of the ones that were just sort of sealed up, the original season 3 ones, but you also have some that sort of starting to open up as well, and that's like a really small thing. But it's like a really small thing, but it's still something I've picked up on, and you get that combined with all the Rockbox enemies that they've added, combined with the Corruptor. The more like infection on the space rig is a part of this too, and also just how the assignment, the critical corruption assignment, part 1 and part 2 progresses, and suddenly the theme of Rockpox has far more of a it's been far more of a focus of this update than we anticipated. In fact,
but I would also say that like it's been this is the best the themes have been handled throughout the entire time, right?
Yeah,
just undeniably, because they have actually resolved this season, albeit probably too quickly, I would imagine. But they beat the Rockpox. At the end of the part 2, we won, right? That is not something that came from the Rivals one. The Rivals scaled down their operation, right? Was that even said? I don't think.
I don't know. I think it was all in like it was. I think it was almost all just in like the line from like season 3, where it's just like the Rivals have like backed off for now or something. It was really thin. Yeah.
Now is like already, which I think once again, I mean, probably wasn't the best idea doing that at the very beginning of season 3, saying, "Oh yeah, the Rockbox is done, yay!"
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah,
5-7 months.
this is something, right, where their sort of inability to not drop everything at once is starting to not be as smart, right? As in general,
Yeah,
and obviously, I think it's something. I think it's something that you told me, is that it has been proven that larger content drops are way more beneficial for games, right? At the
yeah.
same time, an assignment isn't a huge amount of content. At the same, so an assignment isn't a huge amount of content, but in this particular case, this assignment, or this 2-part assignment, it would have elevated the second part, much like it would have done even back in the season 3, where you have a part 2. You've got a part 1 and a part 2 of an assignment. Why does the part 2 have to be there right from the start as well? Obviously, it's not. You have to beat the first one, but why not drop it later? You know, why not have something of a status update? It can all be in the. You don't even have to add content. It can all be in the form of an assignment and a couple of lines of dialogue.
Yeah, yeah. On a genuine note, they could have spread these two things out to like 4 parts, right? And it would have been every like month come back for like the next part essentially.
Yeah.
And they were like, I guess it wouldn't have all 4 parts there, but it would have like part 1 is there immediately, part 2 then like in like you know, like where it show like your weekly reset, like in like, you know, 5 days come back and you'll be back. It would have that in like a month, and then it would just do that, and then eventually, you know, like part 3 would be the destruction of Rig 5, and that would be like a whole thing. And like, can you imagine the fucking hype, Harry, behind the storyline if it was revealed slowly like that?
Yeah.
Like every month, people were like kind of waiting and looking forward to the next part of the story. Like that would be insane, and it would be essentially no more effort than what they've already done. Because they wouldn't even you
No.
wouldn't even need arguably like more voice lines. Like you could easily just have some of them not give you voice lines during the assignment, and it could tell the exact same story. Um, it's just that they I don't know why they're refusing to let people be invested in the story, but also they're kind of slightly more encouraging towards it now.
Well, yeah, and this is why we sort of. I think this is why we're talking about this, is because
Yeah.
season 4 has shown a greater interest. You know, and I sort of mean like interest. It sort of like gives the impression that they're more interested, and gives the impression that the game, or from a developmental perspective, they might be opening themselves up to it a bit more. There's just a greater investment in a narrative, and it almost worked. I think there is actually potential here, right?
Genuinely, though, like the meteorite hitting Rig 5 is actually one of the only historic and interesting things that has ever happened in this game, notably.
Yeah,
Do you know?
and what that's shown me is that they do have the capacity to tell an actual story across the course of a season. That's the next step. Is just have it occur over time. Because, you know, like, I know that they don't know necessarily when the next season's going to be, but it's not going to be in 2 months. I know that. So we've got time to work. We've got room to work with this. You know, we got some time. You know.
Yeah. And plus, like 4 months. By 4 months, they would probably at least have the roadmap out. So it would at least tide people over until people can start looking forward to next month. So instead of looking forward to the next season, they're looking forward to the next part of the story. Right? A lot closer, a lot more achievable, and as far as people that care about the game's concerned, a lot more interesting.
Yeah,
Right?
because what seasons are sort of failing to do is, I guess, bring people back multiple times, if you know what I mean. I feel like some people sort of, they see that a new season has dropped, they might play for a few weeks or so, but most people are not going to be brought back for the entirety of a season, even if they as in a lot of people might not even finish the pass, even if they are actually interested in Deep Rock in general. It's just like, but it's sort of worn out on what it can actually offer me. But honestly, for the people who don't play it constantly, this kind of thing would be perfect because it means that it would actually sort of stretch out. It would give the content that's added more longevity because those people are only coming back at particular points, but they are also given particular points to return over the course of a season. Whereas, like, some people drop off inside the season itself, but then they'll be brought back to the season itself, not by a new season, not by a holiday event, but by literally just the story. Basically,
Yeah.
it could actually
Plus,
happen, and why not invest in that? I feel like they could. I thought they could.
yeah.
I'll do it
And
for
once
free.
again, genuinely,
I'll write this for you.
that isn't an investment right now. Everything they have right now, they could have stretched into that. They could have done it easily. Literally, like, I'm not even saying you don't even need more voice lines. You would just basically, like, there's like 10 of them, 5 or a voice line for each things. You would basically split that into 4, so like 20 missions, and you would just have every other have the voice lines, and the middle ones just wouldn't. Boom, the exact same amount of things in 4 parts that you would then release over the term of like 4 months. Because I think they know damn well they're not releasing anything earlier than 4 months, and so that they could easily just do that. It might give some people the impression that within 4 months would be the next season, like they've timed it out properly. But as long as they've somewhat communicated that that's not true, and or they aim to have some news of next season out by 4 months, like maybe that could, if they feel like having a time, would be when they release the next roadmap. Would be like at the end of that. I mean, I don't know, but like it's just it would just be better. And I think this was something that I had no real interest in pitching to them. Obviously, they're not inherently listening.
Well, it's
but, like,
something I wouldn't even thought about. But I'm only thinking about this because of because season 4 did do a bit more than usual.
they have shown some interest in telling a narrative with the seasons, like an actual genuine one, rather than the rivals appeared, they're getting angry, they've given up.
Yeah.
Just like,
It's sort of just once again, it's just another thing to add on to the list of, I don't, I. It's their game. They're completely within their rights to sort of see it this way, but I think seeing Deep Rock as complete and basically, I mean, to be fair, it was only Mike who I've heard say this, so it might not be sort of represented by the rest of them, but he sort of said the game is done, we're just sort of adding things to it now, adding things to a finished game. I don't know if seeing the game as finished is the right way to look at things because that limits your ability to change and tap into potential that presents itself along the way. As in, this story is a newly presented potential. We didn't think it was something that they had any like capacity for really until now, but now that they've shown a little bit more interest in it, it's like that's a recent development that you should chase. I think that's not something that was there before seasons or even before season 4, arguably. But now it's here, and I think you should pursue it because it seems worthwhile. So yeah, go for it.
I mean, you immediately before I even got the voice line, like before it came out on fucking Xbox, I saw someone did a little comic of the impact of Rig 5, right? Like
You only
genuine
need one thing like that, like theme, one like sort of major event as well.
cool event which ultimately doesn't affect the game at all, right? Like the dwarves' experience in going down into the mines is not changed at all. Carl hasn't been revealed. Like error cubes no longer don't suddenly have meaning. Like nothing that revolutionary has occurred. Simply a rig with a different number to ours was destroyed, and that was a big enough thing in the community because we have so little in terms of story that everyone's like, "Whoa, that's like cool as wow."
Yeah, and I suppose,
whoa.
and this is why sort of like Deep Rock stories are something that I don't think I'm just going to wave that off anymore as something that the game should never do because what this has shown is that by building up so much investment in people over such a long period of time, even without a story, makes it so that when people do get a narrative of sorts, it's really easy to be invested because everyone's already invested. That's why. So it means that this stuff really efficiently generates excitement because everyone's sort of inherently invested in it, no matter what the story is. So it would really be just, I don't know. I think that's a really cool thing that's sort of been touched this season. But they need to realize that it's got more potential, or even that they just need to handle it slightly differently, which is just stretching it out basically. And I know they don't want to do that, but like I said, assignments aren't really content, which is why it would only help. This is something that you can do with those assignments that would make the assignments have more of an impact on the game than they do currently. Right now, it's sort of just something that you just sort of burn through, and you might take note of the story. In fact, we did, but like assignments will feel much more important if they are given more importance. And doing it this way, you still retain what they seem to want to do, which is have all the content release at once. But like I said, an assignment isn't really content in that kind of way, which is why it will not hurt the launch of the season to spread out the assignments. It would only help the assignments themselves feel more important. It would not take anything away. It would only be a boon, basically.
Plus, people would get more of their favorite character. Everyone loves Mission Control. That's like a
You mean
thing.
the only character?
Yeah, well, yeah, and it would, like, because you kind of got to feel sorry for the dwarven voice actor, because I mean, like, you can't believe for a second that recording those voice lines is easy on him.
Oh, I've got to
But as
say though, I
far
think
as
he's actually they're better this season. I've noticed the new voice lines, and they haven't thrown me off either. They're like, oh, that's a new voice line, but it's not like a new voice line. Weird.
it's
I
not
don't know
like
how they fixed that.
saying it. It
Well,
actually sounds like
I just assumed that his voice was like damaged. I assumed it was going to be a permanent issue. I assumed it was,
yeah.
but I guess not.
Like Mission Control, I think is a lot easier to do than the dwarf's voice, right? It's essentially his voice with like a bit of something else, right? Like, I don't think it's 1-to-1.
Is his voice
like,
just sort of elevated, really? Just elevated as if he's like speaking. It's just him pretending to be Mission Control, but he's not really changing his voice.
Yeah. So like he is like the most available to just record a bunch of voice lines and like tell a story and that, which obviously they do a lot. Narrated trailer, the overview, like his voice is used a lot now, and I don't blame them. It's a very good voice, and maybe they could use it a bit more, and like give him a little bit more character if within what he already has, right? And like I don't know, I think it's a very good opportunity, and it could go somewhere if only episodic in nature, right? Which I think would work for the event. Like we're never gonna hear about Space Rig 5 again unless next season is like based on it. It's like recovering some parts of it that like fell into Hoxies or something. Which
Well,
I doubt.
well,
I'm not sure I want, but
I mean that's unfortunately, but also not unfortunately. That would be an amazing idea because that would let them do a season completely. Like Space Rig 5 might have had a bunch of stuff on it, a bunch of DLG hardware on it that we've never heard of, basically. And it's all about sort of recovering this stuff, or a bunch of robotics possibly even going rogue. Then you sort of, you bring the Zynoc charge suckers back into the fray a little bit because there's all this like experimental DLG tech that's sort of like hostile now, and sort of that you need to recover. It's a perfect season theme, and it's sort of they've given the opportunity to do that with like a very very simple explanation, as in season 4's given them the explanation for that. So we'll see.
Yeah. But I think it's an important. I want to note here that they don't have to do that. Like they could easily plant seeds in a season and then grow them into something else later down the line, or they could simply just occur and be an interesting story thing, and they move on. Like how episodic in nature. That in this season, the Rig 5 fucking exploded, but it never comes up again. It's not that kind of storytelling. It tells the story it needs to in each season, and then moves on, and they leave it essentially there. Unless maybe they come back to Rivals or Rockpox one day.
I mean, better yet, you have some. Maybe it could even just be in the form of a voice line. You could almost have something like they've invested in like actual shields for the space rig. I don't know, but then you could also, if you wanted to be a cool guy. You could get like you could see like debris bouncing off of the space with
Yeah,
shield
I
or
mean,
something. But that
and
would
on
be
that
more
as well.
so. That would be more appropriate for like a later theme where it's something like Hoxie's is actually like launching shit at the space rig. I don't know.
Yeah,
um,
even then, like, these ideas are cool, but because Ghost Ship, you know, has a tendency to basically call it a day if it doesn't want to do the exact first type of content that it thinks, right? Like it's like, well, adding new promotion tiers, people the high level players will just complete them immediately. So there's no other option, so we might as well not do it. You know, they do a
yeah,
bit
yeah,
of
yeah,
that.
yeah. That's yeah, yeah.
I want to just disclose the fact that Harry, these ideas are fine, but that's not the only way of adding a story, right? Because that is adding a story, right? That is making each thing lead on to its next thing, and it's a crescendo of narrative, and there'll be probably more characters and more things occurring, and they all tie into each other, and that is a way of telling a story. But I don't think that suits Deep Rock, and if they think it does, then sure, knock yourself off. Everyone would love that. But if they know that that's not the type of story they would want to tell, if any, a more episodic, like what we currently have, is probably preferable. Just have a short, inbuilt narrative to the season and then call it a day. Because that's probably like, all they're ever going to do, really. Um, like, just relating to the season, something will occur. Like maybe they could go a little bit more advanced and actually have like an actual structure, right? With like the whole like hero's journey or some shit, whatever the arcs are called, right? Where like the part three is the all hope is lost moment, like with the rig, and like just stuff like that. But it's all within just a season, and then they'll do it again next season, starting from essentially scratch. So they are not forcing themselves in any way, shape, or form for the story they want to tell for next season by what they're saying in this one. So the current season story is untethered, the next season story is untethered. They can just do whatever the hell they want because that tends to be what they do anyway, right? They tend to just do stuff,
Yeah.
right? They don't like really thinking ahead that much. And I think a story like that intends that they would have to think ahead, which they don't like doing, so they wouldn't do it. So no stories, but there is another option. I want them to know that episodic nature where it's completely separated essentially is that within maybe they like doing part two, so it'd probably be a two, the part twos would be contained within themselves, but you know no, I think they've opened the doors up for that, and I think that was a mistake on their behalf because we had rested on those stories being the way that this was going to go, and now that we could get some other stuff involved, that could get interesting. um,
But I do think it just sort of the amount we were able to say about that, I think just goes to show that Deep Rock is it's more than just like the most basic like content in a way. And I think I just want to use this almost like against against those people who sort of just and this is just a very generic thing because I actually haven't seen this being said that much like over the past like couple of days, for example. But there are still people who say things like season 4 adds like nothing in the sense of like, and they'll say something really dumb. They'll say, "Oh, it's literally just like a mini boss and like 2 enemies." But it's like it can be, and it also literally is a lot more than that. And I feel like there's so much that people ignore, but also to a certain extent, there is some stuff that Ghost Ship themselves ignore, that they could do more with, and that's sort of like the narrative thing. But yeah, but then again, I sort of just said that as if it's like a defense. But I do still have concerns about how much how long season 4 is going to keep the game fresh for, and how fresh it really has made things compared to season 3. I wouldn't say it hasn't gone down like without being noticed, right? It hasn't just washed over me. I can tell that we've got new content, right? I think it's a bit better than season 3.5. But it's not.
like 3.75.
Yeah, or like 3.8. I actually do agree with that. I don't think it's like the whole hog. At the same
Which it
time,
never
it was never.
was.
It was never going to be. It was never going to be. But it's like then we do have to bring up how long it took come out. I say come out because it's not how long it took to make. And that's why it's so important that they communicate this kind of thing, right? Because we know that there are good reasons why season 4 might have taken longer than normal. Most people do not know this though, and they will continue to not know this unless Ghost Ship does hand it to them on a silver platter, basically. Unfortunately, people really do need to be handed this kind of thing to absorb it properly. And they just don't seem to want to do that, which is their choice. But just know people are showing justifiably concern over how long this took to come out, because it's not.
It's not 7.5 months worth of work.
I don't want to say not. I don't want to say worth of work because we know it's not. It's not 7.5 months worth of content for the game.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just not. It's just not. And
Yeah.
will it be enough for the next 6 months? Well,
Yeah, and it definitely won't last another 7.5 months.
it definitely won't last another 7.5 months. But then I sort of think to myself, how long does any of it really last? Because for someone who really plays the game, not even the thing that lasts the longest, that being the performance pass, will last 6 months. For some people it does, but for a lot of people it doesn't. And we need to come to the, not even the conclusion. The conclusion's been clear for a while, but we need to sort of accept that they will not be able to add content that can keep someone who plays every day playing until the next update. They're not capable of that. And I don't think they actually ever were, to be honest. I don't think, we sort of point out how fantastic certain old updates used to be, and I do think they were, but I think back to something like Roughnecks. I think back... What?
We did the thing that they wanted to stop occurring. We would play it, binge it, hardcore burn through it. I mean, me and Tom, we were like on and off, weren't we? Like some seasons I would not give a single shit. Other seasons Tom would not give a single shit. But
in this case, do you mean updates? So
yeah, updates. Yeah. Updates. It's literally like an update would occur and it would like spark something in us, and then like, I think we'd all play for like a week, pretty hard. Like they'd be like, oh yeah, new season. But come the end of the week, like me or Tom would probably drop off. Maybe both of us, maybe neither of us. You'd still probably be playing for a little bit longer. But even then, you would only last like what, a month? You think?
Like, yeah. So this because the example I actually used was Roughnecks at Work, which added escort duty and on-site refining. Right, that's huge. Yeah. 2 new missions. Also, I did a bunch of new cosmetics to unlock. So that's the most pseudo season, by the way, up until season 1. Right, it was sort of like I did the same kind of things. But I remember thinking after like a couple of days, I thought, I've played these mission types a lot. I don't know how long they're going to really keep me playing for. I was thinking. And then I realised, and I'm realising now, it's not, the old updates, these seasons, even if they're taking longer, if we're being very literal, take this aspect on its own, they have more longevity within themselves than the old updates did, right? They just do. But obviously, we did used to get content usually a bit more often. It's actually not as often as people think, though. If I'm being honest, I looked over it recently. It's not a crazy difference. I think the season 3 to 4 thing though is pretty significant. Though that's the only thing. I think before season 4, it was like much more similar to how it was before season 1. So it really is a significant thing that season 4's taken so long, because it's almost anomalous. But the seasons do have far more longevity than the old updates used to, in truth, and that is down to the performance pass, I think, because it can't be anything else, right? It's not anything else, because all the other things are the kind of things that you could get in an old update. So the performance pass is doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of increasing longevity. Even once you complete it, it still adds a certain extra layer in the form of the daily challenges. It's small, but it's still there, and it's something that keeps
layer of rewarding as well. Like every time you complete a mission, you're not just getting XP, gold, minerals, and like all that stuff. You're also getting performance pass points. Like even if you've completed it, it's still a number going up, and there's something in our brain that's like, good, yes, like that, yeah.
Yeah. At the same time, it is the most. It's a really weird sort of conundrum, right? Where the performance pass lasts the longest in terms of like how literally how long is a thing that you can engage with. It's also the only temporary thing because it runs out. obviously you could say other things run out, but at the same time, if you say like the rocket boots run out because you've used them, that's kind of dumb because they last forever technically, but the performance pass stops being something you can progress eventually. It's kind of interesting, which is why I wonder how how much longevity should an individual piece of content that an update would bring, how long should that last? Like, how much time should like something like rocket boots being added keep someone playing for? And then I sort of think, well, maybe it's not about that. I don't.
It's the opposite way around, I think. It's you need to add content that doesn't prevent someone from playing for less or like more time. I'm not sure how in that sentence. Like it shouldn't be content that causes someone to stop playing. As long as your game is full of content that it actively encourages constant replayability, there will be people that do that, right? There was. Even without Season Pass, people still play the game non-stop. And that's just like how it is. Season Pass obviously encouraged more people that need a little bit more encouragement. But it is when they add roadblocks that issues occur.
What's
Right?
an example of a roadblock? I think I know, but
Right. Obviously, not universal. I don't think they've ever added a universal, that's it, this game's fucked, right? Because a universal roadblock is like no PvE in Overwatch, right? That kind of thing. That's a universal roadblock. Like, okay, abandoned ship, this game's fucking dead, let's get the hell out of here. Um, but some light roadblocks were, the rivals. Not everyone liked the rivals. So for the people that didn't like it, why would they play the game? They don't like the rivals. They're being forced to play it. They're everywhere. All that stuff.
mm-hmm.
Block. I think Rockbox same kind of thing, but obviously not nowhere near as far. Roadblock. I mean, Nemesis as well. That kind of thing. Like there were roadblocks for some people. I think there was a light roadblock that has been around for ages, being the overclock grind. Right, that was a thing. That once they got rid of the ramp that was going over the roadblock, for the example of being the bug, people were like, hold on, fuck, look at this giant roadblock, and everyone rioted. But obviously they destroyed that with the new thing, or at least made it smaller. This analogy, I think it works, but it's starting to get confusing with how much I'm relying on it. But it is, they've added some. Some people have been pushed away from the game because of the content they've been adding, but generally they're doing all right. No one was roadblocked by the guns. No one was like, "Fuck,
Yeah.
there's these new guns that I don't like, and
Well,
I have to use."
That's okay.
Use
That's why I bring up equipment and weapons, even in particular, as being the most valuable thing. And we know that it is. We know that it is, but this is another layer on top of that I didn't even think about. I mean, I kind of did, but not so specifically in the sense that no one is going to be stopped from playing Deep Rock by having more options for their kit, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at other things, when you look at the addition of something like Industrial Sabotage or Lithophage Outbreak, you could call those more options for the content that you play, but they are different from equipment in the sense that
You will be forced to play it on occasion.
exactly it's a case of being forced to. It's a case of it being much more dictatorial of the experience, where the equipment that you've chosen it. You're almost sort of the master of it in a sense, which is why the most enjoyment I tend to get out of the game is actually playing content that I already know with equipment that I don't quite know yet, or at least whenever I can. Whenever there are changes, whenever there's new weapons, new overclocks, or new grenades, even, or certain like significant balance changes like we've had this season, what I love doing the most, almost, is trying those things, experimenting with my builds with the content that I already know on like the missions that I already know. So, and this really leads into the big issue quotes with season 4 is the lack of something like that, the lack of something like a mission or a warning or a biome, and how much of a problem that really is. Because we kind of went into season 4, we sort of would you agree that we sort of came to the conclusion that that wasn't actually a problem?
Yeah, but I think
but
that was a bit
a bit
ignorant.
misguided, a bit ignorant. It feels like there's something missing. It does, to a certain
Yeah.
extent. Because I realised now, after playing season 4, that actually having something you can jump into to experience the new content that the season has given you, we have lived in Phage Outbreak, but you sort of look for something new. Having that, it does help. It does help this, and it helps the season feel more present. And as long as it's fun to play, it's a worthy addition. And I guess they maybe got a little bit burned by Industrial Sabotage and that they haven't made a mission type for a while, but I don't know. It's an interesting balance, especially after what I just said about how I think equipment is far more valuable than those things. But like we've got sort of established, season 4 didn't really bring either, um, and that's where I think the problem does lie. I've sort of come to a bit of a not a belief necessarily, but a potential belief that they should probably maybe go down the road of, because as far as we know, part 2 is going to be a thing. Like that's not going to go away, as far as we know. It seems that way, at least, right? So I had the idea that what could work for them is that the part ones are the big ones that are much more focused on the not even really focused on the theme. They're more focused on introducing the theme and adding the gameplay content that you'll engage with. And the follow up season should be more about expanding the components of the theme and also bringing more of the additions that a normal update would bring as well, which is kind of what season 4 is. But I think I don't know. Maybe the first part of a theme could be just more focused on the gameplay and the enemies and sort of like maybe making a new biome even or something like that. And the second one wouldn't have to the follow up wouldn't have to add something like that. It would maybe just add a couple more enemies to do with whatever the theme is and an event, but also more focus on equipment. I don't know if they want to lock themselves into something like that, but season 4 is obviously interesting in the sense that season 4 really has broken some of the trends as well, like in that sense, or the
Yeah,
big ones. It's really weird,
and they're
actually.
finding out whether or not that was a good idea.
Yeah.
And I think the current direction is no. Like, obviously, we've still not seen the player base, player numbers of like who's how many people jumped back on Deep Rock during that. I find it funny that I once saw a comment on the Reddit saying that no matter what, they're still going to break record numbers with the season thing, and I'm like, well, it clearly shows when you jumped on, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because they don't always break records when they release an update. It really was a like a 2-time thing, and I haven't heard any records breaking this update.
Well,
It
is
doesn't
it too
sound
early for that to be a thing?
what.
Is it too early to tell?
Not really. It was as soon as season 3 launched, people made the point that it broke their record on Steam for
Mm.
the most concurrent players. That was an immediate reaction.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
didn't
it doesn't. Season 4 does not feel big outside of Deep Rock, right?
even then, Harry,
What?
even then, how big does it feel like on Deep Rock? How many people are actually talking about season 4 on like the Reddit and that?
Yeah, not that many. And so that brings my mind to the idea of, or sort of the fact that you can observe, which is that they're not going to be able to make seasons like season 1 and 3 every time because they haven't, because we've gotten similar types of seasons in season 1 and 3, and also season 2 and 4 are quite similar as well in a lot of ways, and there's sort of there's almost 2 different types of seasons, and I can easily imagine that being a very that basically just being a recurring thing where the odd numbered ones, the ones that introduce the new themes, are going to be the record breakers, and the ones that follow up are just going to sort of just go under people's radars almost, but almost unfairly, I think. As in, I think maybe going under the radar is almost a good thing, in the sense that I feel like we are going to get updates like season 2 and 4 every other like time. We're going to keep getting follow-up seasons, and they're probably going
I
to keep
think
feeling like this. But maybe people need to appreciate them as those kind of seasons. They're not going to be the same as the other ones.
And I think the issue is I agree with you, but and this is something I really need to keep wrapping my head around is that, but this is not one of those occasions. Season 4 took too long to be one of those. Obviously, we understand that, and we understand it, but it doesn't make it a right thing to do. Like, it doesn't actually mean that Ghost Ship made the right decision in spending ages working holiday events and then working on the season just for it to not have any actual main content. Like, we understand why and how that occurred. Doesn't make it a good idea. And I think it was a mistake. This is not a season that anyone should have waited 7.5 months for.
Yeah.
And I do not blame people for being a little bit, at least, confused. Right?
Yeah. I wouldn't. I mean, maybe even confused. Maybe not even confused is the right word. I think concerned is also justified.
Yeah, and the amount of people that have said that this season was lackluster, probably because Ghost Ship was working on DIG Survivor, fucking infuriates me. Like, just like what? Just, like, fucking don't bother being online. You clearly have no idea what's going on.
Wait, so I feel like the only communication in that department that people get from Ghost Ship is usually like maybe one of the devs might drop in and reply to that person. Like, that happens sometimes, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
But that's not enough either. It shows that they're willing to explain things, but not on a grand scale. They don't do dev blogs in the way that I think they should. You know, they feel very, very almost allergic to communicating any kind of developmental hiccups, or I don't know what the other thing is to call it, because obviously working on the holiday events is not a hiccup, but it is in terms of the season development pipeline, right? It's not a hiccup for them in terms of them like stumbling and sort of having trouble, but it appears that way to other people when it makes the seasons take longer. So that's the kind of thing that they really just need to be really open about, because I think, you know, they're I think when the only communication you get is like 99% positive, it becomes a little bit confusing when the game itself actually seems to be having problems, and yet you only get communication on the good stuff. You know what I mean?
All green over here. It's like, but it doesn't look it. Like,
yeah, he doesn't represent. You know, obviously they
like
can't. They did the thing with with trolls like leaving. That's fine. That's a little bit different, but that's not the kind of thing that anyone would have noticed anyway, as well. But like, you know, the things that people notice is like the gaps between seasons and things like that, or like the lack of seasonal content. Those are things that people pick up on as being like problems with the game, and yet Ghost Ship doesn't seem to, at least in their eyes. You know, like I said, they only communicate the positive stuff, which comes off as very confusing when there are problems that people notice. It makes it seem like Ghost Ship almost doesn't. Although those problems are like the grand scale problems. Obviously, Ghost Ship picks up on and addresses a lot of smaller scale stuff, like the promotion bug and things like that. You know, obviously they address technical issues. They address technical issues with the game. Obviously, they're very good at that, actually. But it's,
they talked about it in the dev stream, like when it occurred, and then in the big anniversary stream. That thing, they did it then, but they would never have publicly, like, if it wasn't for the anniversary event, I bet you that they probably wouldn't have made a thing about it. Like, they would have, like, I cannot see a universe where they would have even done a Reddit post talking about how they're fixing the bug and how they're changing it. I could, if it was not for the anniversary event, I could have seen them just adding it, right? They would not have talked about it openly, publicly.
Yeah.
I think you can see that as well, right?
Well, that's because the reason why that's so believable is because they've shown sort of a proclivity towards just do, don't say, just do. But that doesn't work when it comes to the stuff that takes longer, though, right? You know, you can't just put your heads down and work.
When the do is in like 7 months.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the difference. Where in fact it wouldn't have been a problem if they didn't talk about the promotion thing and they just added it. Right? I don't think that would have been a problem. And people were like, oh shit, they just changed it, and it's good.
Yeah, but
they decided to communicate anyway.
Because it was convenient, right? Yeah. Because they're already doing the stream, and they couldn't do the stream and not address it, right? Yeah. That's not an option. And
But
so
obviously, these longer term things are, because they are longer term, are not immediate issues for them to address. Because it only becomes an issue once you realise that it's been 6 months since and the update hasn't come out. You know, that's when it starts to become an issue.
They quasi address it, right? Whenever they happen to be doing a Steam post, they also then mention that, oh, and we're still chugging away on the next season, guys. Like, they always do that, right? Whenever it's some other Steam related news, like a holiday event, right? Every holiday event, they're like, when we're still chugging along with this season. Like, they never actually just made a Steam post saying, we're chugging along with the season. Here's where we're at currently, without obviously giving the details. Like, we're on a good way there. We've got like some I don't know, some just technical stuff to figure out.
Yeah.
And some frameworks to finish off, and then it'll be ready soon. Like, they never say some shit like that, or like they're just not good at communicating, like, at all. Like, it's the way I see it is that they always hear us.
Yeah.
Right? They genuinely, any YouTube video on Deep Rock you probably post, they have probably seen or heard of at the very least. Any comment you leave on the Discord, if it's of any note worth, they will probably come to their attention. Everything on the Reddit, is it Johan or Jacob? I think it's Jacob. Jacob will have seen. They see and hear everything you do, one way or another. They are incredibly good at that. But it's not the other way around. We know we're being heard, but they do not speak back.
Yeah, people think they're good at communicating only because they're honest, which they are. But there's still not enough of it. There's not enough communication in like the really important areas.
It is something that, like, yes, they do the dev streams, but can you honestly, genuinely say that that's them speaking back? That is at best a whisper. Right, in the grand scheme of the fucking Deep Rock community, 400 people at most tune into the dev streams, right? And of those, one Chad turns it into a somewhat digestible thing that's on the wiki, which I bet all of fuck all people actually go and read. You can tell by the people that watch our videos on them that is probably the most people engage with that, right? Like, that's kind of why we do it, isn't it? Because we know that people won't search out for that page on their own, and they won't watch the dev stream, so we put it in at least a somewhat more digestible form. Not much more digestible, but ultimately there. And it's just, they need to speak up. And not just, like, speak up about that, oh yeah, we're crumbling to pieces. It's literally just make a Reddit post talking about their game. Just do that and pin it, because they pin everything they do. Just like, oh, make a Discord alert, and it's just like, hey guys, here are our current thoughts on the game. That's it. A lot of other games do it. The Overwatch mentioned earlier, everyone fucking hates Overwatch. It's a piece of shit. They are infinitely better at communicating than Deep Rock, except also not, because they really kept the fact that the PvE was not very under wraps. But everything else, as far as the multiplayer is concerned, they are, if anything, too honest. They've actually talked about this, because they talk about things and things that are on their mind way before it's even ever going to come out. Which, in all fairness, they do a little bit of that, right? On the dev stream, they talk about that they probably will do a perk rework.
But they're also very careful about what they lock in, because they don't want to make promises that they might not even ever had any intention of keeping, basically.
You want to know why they're promises, Harry? Because they never say anything. So anything they do say then becomes a promise. But if they were just always talking about ideas and be like, hey, we're thinking this would be kind of cool. What do you guys think? Or hey, this and that. Like, if they were more fluid and open with what their current thoughts are, people wouldn't take them as dead-on promises, because there would be so many from the pool that they're not all going to recur. But because it's the only guaranteed thing to occur, it means that any information we get is guaranteed, essentially.
Or feels like it, certainly. Obviously, it's not literally, but, because we sort of take things like the perk rework is actually a really good example. I sort of see the overclocks in a very similar position where we constantly get the reminder about all of their like overclock prototypes and things like that, and like how new overclocks are on the table. Which, by the way, we said this like after season 3, we sort of said, season 4 are going to be perks or overclocks. And it was neither. And now it's like, should we be expecting one of those next season or not? Personally, I still am, because I think that's justified. Not because I literally expect it, because I think that's very reasonable to expect one of those two things. Because they're things that they've sort of been thinking about, even in the case of overclocks, had stuff made for a long time. So it's sort of like, this stuff's going to happen eventually, but then you look at season 4, which brought neither of those things, but also took like a really long time. And that's where I start to sort of get a little bit antsy about sort of like the game not necessarily getting what I think it needs, you know?
And you know what would be a good time to explain that? In a post where they would go on about like why season 4 took so long. Why haven't they done that? Everyone is complaining about why did this take so long? Why did this take so long? And everyone's responding with incorrect information.
Yeah, it's also...
Yeah, I think they're really toning it down. Oh, I think they were working on DIG Survivor. No, they fucking weren't any of those things. And yet, Ghost Ship is hearing those people spreading misinformation and sitting there, mouth zipped. Just like, nah, fuck it. Who cares if they make up a bunch of shit?
Yeah, and the reason why they need to address this is because it's the only thing, really, that people are always justified in bringing up. It's the most valid concern and criticism. It's like, as in, everyone who's brought this up is right to bring it up. Not saying that everyone who's brought it up hasn't had other points that could easily be disproved, but it's the one thing that anyone who's like brought up is correct to bring up. That's why it's the thing that needs to address.
We are probably wrong in many areas. Like, we don't know enough. Like, because we're barely scraping at the shit they give us, right? And
yeah, I just assume that they were working on the holiday events up till February.
We don't know that.
No.
Like, obviously they were working on them, but we don't know if it was 100% work on them. And like, but yeah, it was just assumptions. But genuinely, why haven't they done a Steam post / Reddit post / Discord? Or probably there'd be a Steam one that would get sent to the other two, and even then, I don't think that many people see them. So, you know, but that's the best they can really do. Saying season 4 took a while. Here's why.
Yeah.
And then they go through the list of all the things they did, a timeline of what they did, because there's no reason to keep it a secret, right? Everything that has occurred in that time has come out, right? So, there's nothing that they can reveal about season 4 that isn't already currently in the game or revealed to have been in the game, right? There is no secrets that should be hidden.
No.
Right? They can just come out and say, all right, Christmas, we were, dealing with the patches of season 3.
Well, they do say things like how they got carried away sometimes.
Yeah, they do, and they'll probably say it then. Like, yeah, we got caught up in the Christmas event. We probably spent more time on it than we should have. But then we basically just did it up until our holiday, and then they'd say that, and then they would just be honest, because of course they're going to be honest. I don't think for a second they're going to lie about it, but they just don't tell us. Even though I think that they definitely have good reasons for all of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And people would trust them. They built up a lot of trust as well that they're not really taking advantage of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like,
I can yeah, of course I can hear that. Of course.
Yeah. The funny part is that you probably heard it out from his window and in through mine rather than through the house.
Do you have your door shut or not?
No, my door's open, but his is shut.
Yeah. I mean, what can we do? Killing.
Yeah.
What was I saying?
But no, it was.
I was saying that they have a lot of trust built up, but it doesn't feel like they're taking advantage of it, which I think they should. It doesn't sound right to take advantage of it, but they're not doing anything with it.
And like they would probably want to discuss in that as well that they're a very healthy gaming company in that they work Monday to Fridays 9 till 5, like the normal working hours, right? I don't know the time exactly, but I know they don't do weekends, do they?
I don't think so. No.
They're not crunches, they don't any of that. So they probably have to bring that up during that as well, to explain that don't expect anything unreasonable from us because we're not that kind of company, that kind of thing. But like they would just give the reasons that they have, and then everyone would be like, okay,
cool.
Yeah, like, and then people could be like, okay, but like we don't value holiday events that highly, so you know, and then there'll be discussions based on facts instead of people running off pure bullshit. People saying that like, oh, they were working on DOG Survivor, and then people responding to them saying, I don't think they should have been doing that. I think they should have been working on the main games. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck off? It's not even a fact. You're just making shit up, and then you're putting some poor sod into thinking that they're fucking not working on the game anymore.
They shouldn't really let that happen.
Bullshit is letting this happen. Genuinely, because they are there reading it, listening to this, seeing people come up with these things, because it's everywhere, right? There's, it's a common myth right now is that they're toning things down in one way or another because they're working on something else or just giving
well, once again, in the year that the CEO of the company, like the very first time he described the game as an evergreen was this year. And yet, they're about to go into maintenance mode. Sure.
Yeah.
That's why they're planning a major perk rework, because they're planning going into maintenance mode. Sure.
And then all of that was revealed in the anniversary stream, the biggest dev stream they do with the most people. That was probably approaching more 20,000 people watching, right?
And yet people still say these things. That shows that shows that the communication they're doing doesn't quite work. It's not.
And in all fairness, but the things they said in the dev stream are actually known. Like, people will then comment saying, like, in those stupid fucking dumbass discussions about how they're toning it down, people will come up and say they called it an evergreen, they're not toning down, because that was seen. But even then, not enough, and even then, not solidly enough. Like, it's not like an actual Steam post that people can pull a link to. I mean, I guess they could link the video of them saying it, but like, it's not available information like immediately, and it is such a huge flaw, and I feel like they're afraid to. They either don't notice it because they've never communicated like that.
Yeah,
they've just never done it, and it would be weird to start, but now you can. Now is such a good time to just make a Steam post, link everywhere. I mean, maybe just an actual Reddit post, or just, Discord and Reddit is the main source of how they get to stuff. And I'm pretty sure when they post to Steam, they post it to both of those things, right? So that's really kind of the best way of going about it. And if they just do that, just saying, here's why it took so long, that would be an immaculate start, right? And then from then on, they can actually be kind of communicating better with the community, right? Like, they can be like slightly apologizing, not really apologizing because I don't think they have anything to apologize, but they can be like, okay, we added this content, some people aren't a fan of it, what would you like to see next season? And then they would put the stuff that they know that they kind of want to do.
I want to point out as well that I think a lot of the responses would be, the thing, if they asked what people wanted, I'm gonna say like the things that would come up the most. 3 things. It's biomes, perks, and overclocks. It's biomes, perks. I'm pretty sure. Maybe overclocks is the more ambiguous. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't think. I mean, obviously it will have a comment section, but I don't think it should just be an open-ended question. It is a poll, right? Where they have the things that they know they want to do and need to do, but need to know to prioritize it, right? Because as they've mentioned, it's not a matter of not wanting to do things, it's a matter of not having the time to. So it should be them basically prodding the community as in, what should we invest the time to doing? And when the poll or biome or both inevitably peak, and tons of people pick them, they're like, okay, clearly we should be aiming towards this.
That's the thing about season 4 that I think it's very fair to say about season 4 is it doesn't feel like it was pointed towards anything that was really on the community's mind.
Same as season 3, right? Both seasons, it was them treading their own
really,
and no one really asked for any of it. No one wanted another warning. No one wanted new grenades. No one wanted a randomizing beard. Not that any of these things were bad ideas, but no one wanted them, right? Actually, Arcade Machine, I think some people did want, so fair enough on that one. And the jet boots and the Arcade Machine.
Blue hair. You wanted blue hair.
Blue hair, yeah. Like, once again, though, that's them listening. Because they do hear it. They know everyone wants the perk rework. They know people want biomes. But they're just not doing it for, I imagine, good reasons. But I don't know them. because they don't say it.
Well, they're not doing it yet. I think they will, but it's just sort of like, why wasn't season 4 one of these things? Is it not because I think they're planning something bigger? I just think they sort of found themselves not able to do anything other than sort of coast for season 4. I think they found themselves in a position where it's like, I don't think season 4 is going to turn out well if we try and do something that isn't Rockbox Part 2. I think that's probably how it went.
From the anniversary stream, which once again was one of the most influential smidges of communication. Like, if we got anything close to the communication that dev streams gave out regularly, can you fucking imagine how healthy the relationship with between?
Well, the closest thing is like something like on the experimental release day, the stream they did, Mikkel just showed up. I think they didn't even know. He just sort of dropped in on the call because they talk on Discord because they're playing on PC. He just sort of drops in and it's like, "Hello, ask me things. I want to tell you things." And then like they have to like shoo him away, and he's like, "No, I want to answer more questions." And he sort of like goes on like rants about how enemies are like implemented in the game and stuff. And it's like, that's so fucking cool. I want Mikkel to just like live stream every week because it would just be nuts. He would just get Mikkel because that's the thing. I feel like they would have to stop him because otherwise he would just spill too much because he does. Yeah. Like you go back to the anniversary stream where he brought up the beer. It felt like no one knew that they were going to do that. It's like, we're getting a new beer in season 4. I was like, what are we? I fucking love Mikkel. I fucking love
the guy that put the jet boots in the fucking thingy because they were like, "Were we even going to put that in there?"
I love it. He's such a loose cannon, but he's also like he's also got it. He also knows what he's doing as well.
What's stopping them? What's stopping Mikkel from doing like an AMA on Reddit, right? And ask me anything. And I realize it's probably the team as a whole is like he'll spill too much.
I think it's also because of like they do have guidelines set up for how they're meant to interact, and they probably apply to him as well. So. About how there's certain things they can and can't do on like public forums.
Yeah. Except like right now is such a pristine moment to do that because there isn't anything to spoil. There's nothing to spoil. They are probably still don't know what they're doing for season 5.
Oh no! Absolutely not, because they wouldn't be working on season 5 yet. Because they're still currently they would be working on. Currently they are working on season 4 still. The next patch, and then maybe a week or 2 from now they'll start working on season 5. I reckon.
But after their holiday, right? When's that?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. That's the thing. Which is why I think they So I'm thinking about when the holiday ends. I'm getting really down in the weeds now, of like trying to outline things and how things might go for like season 5 and whatnot. So let's go back to. I think it was actually. No, it wouldn't have been then. It'd be before season 3. When they come back, basically, or. I mean, the last thing before it's basically before the Oktoberfest announcement. It's 4 million units sold, which was actually June 23rd, which was yesterday. So, I don't know. Whatever. Basically, I'm saying that I think it's very, very possible for them to get season 5 out this year. I am thinking about that. I can't stop myself from thinking about that. It's just natural. But I don't know if that will be the case. I'm not sure.
I think. I think we've covered basically all the actual content in the game.
Well, have we?
Yeah. Well, other than the cosmetics.
Well, we're still doing like impressions. It's like. I've gotten the cosmetics is actually an interesting thing this time around because there's a couple things that they did with cosmetics, well, not that many. Mainly the sleeveless armors thing, which
they need to fucking fix right quick.
Oh yeah.
I swear to God, every single time it's taking off my fucking sleeves, and I'm like, can you cut it out? I'm not even using the fucking driller anymore, and it just keeps taking it off.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. And I think, while good, I'm ultimately kind of not that impressed. Or not impressed.
I mean, they did it pretty well. They did. What could they have done, really?
I know. But it's also, I don't know. Not many of them do I want to take my sleeves off. But that's, I guess, more a me thing. But like, it is still a step in the really good direction in that they are chopping the old cosmetics a little bit.
Exactly.
Which
Yeah,
obviously
I'd love to see the ability to like mix and match arms as well, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But then, yeah, I mean, because other cosmetic stuff like the actual, obviously we talked up like the pass and things as like being like a really potent source of longevity. But something I've noticed is that it usually takes a lot longer to complete the cosmetic tree. And I'm not as interested in the cosmetic tree this time around.
I've got all of the actual cosmetics from the cosmetic tree. Oh no, I guess that's not fair. All of the
You've got the armors, right? Is that what it is?
I know. I've got the first thing, which I've forgotten what it was already.
Well, yeah,
I've
you've got to
got
get the first thing.
the weird little chin beard, the weird
Yeah.
little mustache, and the scar thing. I've got all the actual things
Mm-hmm.
from it.
Yeah, I've got all the armor paint jobs.
I don't like any of them.
Don't
I
like
don't
any of
remember
them.
what the first one was, but the beard looks terrible. The moustache is a moustache. It's the same as all the other moustaches. That is just small and weird. And then the other one is a forced bald. So that is that. Like there is no harm in making that an eyebrows. It would have been. It literally changes your eyebrows. It actually has eyebrows on it. I think it's one of the
What are
only
you talking about?
headgears that gives you eyebrows.
What?
The Nick Fury one at the end of the pass.
Oh, the Nick Fury one. Right.
Like the only one of if there is some others, that has eyebrow in the cosmetic. It's a forced eyebrow. So why isn't it in the eyebrow section? And that irks me slightly.
Because it's like an eye line thing. It's not a head wear. It's all in the eye line.
It's all in the eyebrows area, and it changes your eyebrows. So it essentially overwrites your eyebrows. Your eyebrows don't matter, and you can't put hair or wear headgears or anything. So fuck off, game. Like, and no one's calling them out like the face mask, and it's pissing me off.
Yeah, because it's like it's the same thing, just in a different place.
There's no reason for your like cosmetics to be limited that heavily.
And on top of that, we've got the the framework to tackle.
Right, I have put it on. I got the Bulldog one because I thought I might have a look for a gunner, that I don't, and I probably won't have it for any of them. I just won't. I will have a Glyphid Hunter framework, and for now we're just talking about the normal framework. We'll go. I guess we'll do the DLC after. I forgot about the DLC. Yeah, I will not have this framework on anything because the fuck am I going to pair it with?
Exactly.
Right? What? There's no other Rockbox things, no armor Rockbox or anything like that. There's no headgear with Rockbox on, which I think is stupid. Like, come on, what? Why wouldn't you have like a helmet infected with Rockbox as a headgear? Like, where was the harm in doing that?
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, fuck it, fuck you then, fuck off. I'm not gonna use it. It looks like it doesn't look that bad. In all fairness, like its default color scheme is ass. But if you pick some of the color schemes work quite well with it, and all just look good, and then that looks good on top of it. But it just doesn't work.
Someone made a really good point though, right? That was basically about how the infected framework is like it's just so niche, that they said, and that it just shouldn't be. They said it would make more sense as a DLC, which I don't know how I'd feel about that. But it's also but honestly, logically though, it is right where I think the framework that's in the cosmetic tree should be something that isn't niche. I think that's actually a really good point, where it should be something that everyone would want. Or, better yet, maybe they just don't do it for once. They just don't, because it would have definitely been better this time if they didn't do it. Because it's just a bunch of clutter. It's just a bunch of clutter. It's just so they have something to. It's just so they have something that forces them to create a bunch of things to unlock, right? So maybe just try not doing that. Maybe try just having some armors instead and a couple other things, and you don't even have to match the total number of items. You don't have to, I don't think. I think it's also because armors are so much more desirable that people be more willing to go down like a really long path of like the tiny little spokes to get to those armor sets. That's so much more of a pursuit rather than just following like a train of just like shitty frameworks every other slot. You know?
Yeah,
Uh,
because I beelined the main path, and I got that one just so I could see it, like for anything, just for this video. And I'm like, yep, nope, I'm not going to use that. And now I'm going to get the victory moves, the paint jobs of like the weapons and armor, and then I'm going to stop caring about the script, and I'm just simply going to ignore it because
yeah,
I'll get more at
you've
the
got to
end.
make this stuff like, especially when you have the cosmetic tree populated almost exclusively by one thing. Like in terms of aesthetics, it is one thing, right? You need to make sure that thing is. You either need to take a different approach, which I think they do next season, or you need to make sure it's something that is just going to be universally desirable or at least neutral. There are people who really don't like the infected framework, and I think that's absolutely understandable. It's
I
not
think
the right direction to.
slightly.
It's not the right direction to go with something like that. Something that is so like integral to the cosmetic tree this season should not be something so niche and so like
It's just
unstable. You know, should not.
the issue that I think the art team is like slightly out of touch. And I think isn't the voice actor of Mission Control like the head of art?
I don't think so. I don't think so. If you, would be a good idea to have that kind of thing to hand.
Yeah. But like
Robert.
I
Is it Robert? I think it's Robert. Art director. Okay, you're right.
yeah, it's not best to put a name because obviously it's a team, but I think they course correct often. But I think it's the fact that they're often off course which is concerning,
Yeah.
right? Because they added the plague mask beak. That was kind of cool, but it didn't have a hat, right? And I think that's a petty bitch, especially since they added one with a hat. But I think it's an example of the point that anyone that recognizes that that looks cool would have given it a hat, right? Like anyone with objective taste, I'm sorry, but like it would have looked better with a hat, and it looks goofy without one, right? That's just an objective thing. Everyone was like, okay, why is there not got a
Yeah.
hat?
It
And
does.
obviously they're doing it one, but
It
that's still
seems.
that was a course correction because they went off course. And I think they do that often, like with putting, and I don't think this was all on them because this was probably a technical element, like putting the face mask on the headgear, right? That was a huge fucking miscourse, and they
Yeah,
had to
yeah.
course.
That's
And
different
then
because
they
that was
got the score
That's different because
by making
there's a
it.
very good chance of like the face mask thing. They might have already like they might have been thinking internally. This doesn't quite work as a head. Well, like, why they were sort of limited by the systems. I think maybe,
Yeah,
and it's a
and
very
then
good
obviously
chance that they brought it up themselves to like the higher up stuff. Like we need like the cosmetics to change a little bit because we need this kind of thing shouldn't be a headwear. Like look at it.
yeah,
Like
which, maybe that might be what the Nick Fury one's bait for. It's like, come on, eyewear, come
well, there's two that
on.
are that, aren't there? There's two things in the season that are that
Yeah,
exactly.
but
They're
both of
just eye line based things that leave your head bald. Just
yeah, but both of them are bald on purpose. Right? Nick Fury's bald, and balded specular, whatever the other
sure,
one
but
is.
it can at least be my choice. Sure can.
No, 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 I get that, but like, it's annoying that both of them are purposefully bald because otherwise you could really make the argument that it's dumb as hell.
You still can.
But
You still. Can.
yeah, you still can,
I
and I
am.
think I might.
Yeah.
There are. I've definitely cemented subreddit posts that I want to make now from this. But yeah, literally, I don't know. It's so annoying how often they slip up. Not to mention the fact it took them this long to add blue. I mean, yeah, they added blue, but come the fuck on. No one wanted any other hair color than blue from the beginning.
Yeah.
What took this long?
So I was about to like sort of talk about how I think the performance pass actually looks very well populated, and I think it is, and I've seen a lot of the stuff, and it all looks
It
pretty
is.
good. But I have a bit more of a, you could call it theoretical issue, where you take something like the hair color, and it's like one of the main reasons it took. Obviously, it should have been there a long time ago, but if we go from like season 1 onwards, it sort of brings up the issue of the reason it's taken so long since then is that they have a formula, which is like there's only going to be one hair color per season. So we only get one hair color per season, and yet we get like so many headwear still. And
I hope that it's the art people that are in charge of those things.
they've set that for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope that that's the case, and it's not like the technical people. Like, oh no, we just need like one hair color per, and that's all we need to meet that criteria.
But no, it should literally be what it should be is honestly not even a minimum number of items, mainly because of the framework thing. As in, I feel like you could easily cut a bunch of those out in place for armors, and not even like fill in the rest of the space. Maybe a little bit, but you know, maybe let's take the pass on its own then. Maybe where sure you can have a limit, you can have like a minimum number or a maximum number of items to add, but I don't think there should be any numbers tied to the individual categories. To be honest. I think it should literally just be the ideas, the everything that they want to add, basically, every season. Obviously, there is a very strong argument for, you know, spread that out. Don't literally add everything that you think is a good idea in one season. I think that's actually valid. But at the same time, if you've got more, if you're making the season 3 cosmetics in the studio, and you're like, I've got like way more ideas for hair colors than just blue. You should be able to make more than one hair color and put it in season 4, especially because hair color is something where there's so many possibilities as well. You could easily have multiple per season, and you would never run out. You would,
yeah, like, you have like so many colors, and they've added like metal sheen. So you have so many colors times by metal, and then let alone all the other textures you can easily. Well, not alone you can use multiple colors, right? Like with the gradients of like the black and like grey and that.
Yeah, where's another one of those though? No, why haven't we got one of those in so long?
Because we're only getting one at a time, and
Yeah.
they've got so many basic bitch ones to get fill out, and it's just I don't know. It's just it's weird. Like honestly, genuinely, I think more people would love a season where everywhere where there's a framework for a weapon in the tree is a hair color.
I would. I think that'd be hilarious.
Everyone would find it funny, and everyone would realize that's so much better. Right? Especially after this season, where I think everyone's kind of disappointed by the framework. Now's a good time. Like, I don't know. I think this season has been so much of a universal disappointment that they can kind of refresh come season 5.
Yeah,
right?
even though we're not like we are absolutely not season 4 haters. I don't think we're the opposite. I mean, we were almost season 4 apologists though before it came out. In fact, I'd argue that we were. We're not now. I'm definitely I'm overall happy with season 4 in a vacuum, right? But I'm still really interested that if the response to season 4 is gonna have an effect, and I really hope it does. Not because, I mean, maybe I believe it, maybe I don't, but not even because of that. I'm just interested to see what Ghost Ship would do when they feel like they've disappointed everyone. That sounds kind of weird, but it does intrigue me. You know,
I feel like they learned the wrong lesson, though, because you know they're once again they're kind of extremists in that regard, where it's either that one way or it doesn't work, or like it's nothing. In that, like, okay, the seasons where they added obvious equipment and obvious new content, they did really well. But the season where we didn't do that, it didn't do well. Therefore, we must only ever do the big content and big equipment.
You're saying
that's
it's very.
That's our only option.
It's like a risk that the lesson they could learn is that everything with season 4 was wrong. You know, is what you're saying.
No, yeah. Well,
I think that's the lesson that they might learn. That's like the risk.
USC was right, but I don't think they see it like that. But it is a fact that how about you try with actual equipment and no big content, or big content with no actual equipment?
Yeah, that's what it should be. I want to see that more than my weird idea of like having it alternate between the two. I at least want to see a season that only has one of those things, but maybe goes harder into it, or doesn't even have to, but it just doesn't have the other thing, but it still has one of them. You know, like a biome is one I can see it, because a biome is a lot of work as well, maybe even more than a mission type. So that's where I can see that happening. At the same time, I'm yearning for both things. I'm yearning for a new biome, I'm yearning for new overclocks, and I'm yearning for the perk rework. So I don't know what I want them to do first, to be honest. They need both the things.
I think perk rework. Everyone
Yeah.
knows wants the
Yeah.
perk
Yeah.
rework.
Yeah.
I think people understand that we're due a biome, but not inherently that we need one. Right? The perk rework would do a lot more for
Well,
the game.
that sort of brings up the difference between what's due and what feels like should be next, right? Because I feel like there's very few things that are required, but we're in a sort of like a situation with the seasonal content where it's like, yeah, the reason people want a biome is not because there's a lack of biome diversity, but because the game is like a very ongoing thing. So it just feels like the next thing that should be added. You know, it feels like the next thing that should get some more variety, which does not mean the variety is bad. It's actually fantastic, by the way. The biome diversity in this game is really quite remarkable, but it still feels like the next thing they should do. You know,
but I genuinely think that perks is one of the biggest.
That's one of the required ones, so yeah, that's one of the things that people want and need.
In the game,
I will be so confused if it's not in season 5. Genuinely, I'll be so just befuddled.
And you would be very, very confused unless they, in reasonable detail, explained why they can't do perk reworks yet. It's simply too big a task, and they still haven't concreted on what they want to do for it. So for now, we're going to do other things. Unless they said that, you'd be really confused.
And also, but because those things would be a lot of work, I would see something like a new biome and perk rework together being like a real, like, that would be a lot, and that might be too much. That would take a really long time. So I could. Well, no, because I think what I'm saying is though is that like season 5 would probably, I don't know. I'm gonna say this, but I don't know if I think this. It would probably be more beneficial to add something like a biome, maybe, because
I think it really depends on if they've cemented what they want to do with the perk rework yet.
Yeah.
Because I think they might end up spending too much time trying to figure what they want to do out than actually doing it.
Well, what I'm saying is that how, as good as it would be, as fantastic as it would be, if that's like the only thing, or it's like almost everything in the season, how would people like view that? It's like, where's the gameplay? They would be saying. It's like maybe they need a biome more than a perk rework at the moment. It's possible.
I think right now we need, and the game needs, a short season 4 within the terms of Deep Rock. Like we're talking like 5 months minimum, I would say. And we get a meteor on surface level thing next, which would be like a biome. Right? Biome specific enemies, maybe another power up. If we wanted to like, continue reinforcing that, something like that, just a boom, moving on.
And then what's the follow up going to be? Another biome? No, the follow up's going to be perk rework and overclocks. I don't know.
Maybe overclocks for the season 5, because if they've already been working on slowly in the works and they've proven, if there's one thing you can clearly gather from this season is that people are frothing at the fucking mouth for some overclocks, right? That is literally, they spent months working on the all the new enemies, the fucking randomizer, the jet boots, all of that shit. No one gives a fuck compared to a new overclock. A double barrel rework, people cared so much more. All that new content, they were like, don't give a fuck.
That's because, really, Tyler, this is because I am so confident in this that equipment is so much more valued by the community than anything else. The only thing that even comes close is biomes. Biomes like way more valuable than mission types as well, by the way, I think. Because biomes have like a drastic effect on everything, including like mission types, and just the overall game feel was so different. But equipment is so hilariously it's not overvalued. It's just it's so hilariously over important to the game that it is by far the most valued piece of content.
You really don't understand. They're like,
they do. No. They do. They get how they understand the value of new weapons, but it's like, but then it's like, It's so much
new
work
weapons,
though.
but like they're like pushing aside overclocks, right?
Kind of, yeah, yeah.
They're
No, they
like
are. They
they're
are.
leaving this one guy to just chug away and see what he can come up with, and then they'll focus on other things. Meanwhile, I bet you that whatever that one guy's been doing on the side, the community will love more than what they've been
I
working on
think
as a
it
team.
might be the weapon balance guy. I can't remember who that is, but he like sort of talks about it, and he's sort of like he's kind of as in there is kind of just one guy doing that stuff. I think it sort of
Yeah.
all gets discussed, but the guy who's actually making those changes, he obviously has a lot more say than anyone else because he's the guy who does it. So he's probably made a lot of changes that weren't even discussed. Like he sort of just does things, and it's like everyone. I feel like everyone loves that guy, even if they don't know who he is. It's just like
I'm of the opinion that the new giga fast thingy for the Hurricane was probably one of those overclocks. I don't think they just like made it up like right then and there. I mean, they could have. It's a fairly simple one, but I feel like he probably already had that overclock
well,
as an idea and like ready.
actually, that I think that can be disproven. Because of I don't think it's a ongoing thing, right? What they did is they made a bunch of overclock prototypes for Gen 1 and 2. When they did this, when they made these prototypes, was going up to Season 1. It's very possible that Rocket Barrage was cut for the Hurricane, but it wasn't a prototype because the time when they were going to add more overclocks for Gen 1 and 2 was going to be Season 1. And I think because they didn't, they shelved it at that point. So all the prototypes are for Gen 1 and 2. And so I just assume that when overclocks is on the table, they're gonna make some for all of them, which is what I want. That's why I'm okay that it hasn't been. That's why I'm okay that it wasn't in season 3, by the way, or season 4, because that's maybe a bit too soon. Because I think when they add them, it should be across all generations, and it's a bit too close in proximity to Gen 3's like release. You know.
I think that doesn't disprove it because that implies that the entire team, or most of the team, was working on the actual overclocks for that season, but obviously they couldn't quite do it. But it's just then since then been this one guy chugging away.
I don't know if that's actually true.
Yeah, well, either way, we don't know because they don't fucking talk. They don't confess. They say no, we're not doing overclocks. Moving on. And if they
Well, no, they
have
don't
said,
say. They have never said no to overclocks. That's the thing. They're like,
well, yeah, we're not doing it now though. That's they
we've got
always
some
like, no
prototypes or overclock.
or,
No, no, no,
yeah.
no, no, no. It's more open than that still as well. It's not the no plans thing. It's always like they're on the table or we've got some prototypes.
They've been on the table for like 2 years, Harry.
Uh-huh.
Like, you can't. It's tough. The stuff that they probably said no plans to, they probably added before they've added the new overclocks. Or I guess they've added them now, but yeah, I don't know. I think this season in game is fine. Ignoring the wait, ignoring
That's what I said. In a
everything else,
vacuum, I think it's quite good.
in game, albeit a bit buggy and quite rare, is fine. But considering the context, disappointing. But also considering the entire context that we can just about scrounge from the information we've gotten from them, expected. But, you know, it is what it is. I think really, I mean, at this point, they're going to keep releasing patches, but ultimately, it's not going to change anything. The only real next step is for them to come out and explain why. That's it. That's it. It's literally that'll do it. That'll either satiate 98% of the players, and the 2% that they don't, they were being mad anyway.
And
right?
so the people who would say they don't need to say anything, I would ask you, why do you think there are still people talking about this? You know, you're not going to have to shut those people up anymore because I know that you do. You know who I'm talking to, as in the people you know who you are. You're not going to have to shut up the people criticizing Ghost Ship if Ghost Ship come out and explain all this shit. So I don't want to see people saying that they shouldn't have to say anything, because I know that the people who say that are the types who are speaking for Ghost Ship, and I don't like people who speak for Ghost Ship. I'm really trying to. I mean, we do it a little bit, but in the sense that there's the very constant caveat of we don't actually know. We don't basically. We don't actually know, and I just don't think anyone should be speaking for them, as in because it's time for them to speak for themselves. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Loudly.
Yeah. Anyway, the arcade machine.
Fucking hate that piece of junk.
What's something to do while your friend's going for a piss?
Yeah, no, it is actually handy.
It's handy. I like that area of the rig as well, especially having like the ladder on the other side, which I didn't quite expect. It's just kind of neat. I don't know. I like it. Other stuff. We didn't actually get into the Sabata rework as much as I thought we would, but that's because it's not. I don't think there's that much to say. I was sort of just going to be like, I think I can put it down to a sentence, which is, it's better, it's good, it's still the Sabata though, and that's okay. But it's still the Sabata, which means not Sabata. It's not gonna, you're not a Sabata fan. It's not gonna make you a Sabata fan, but it's the Sabata, but better. And I don't think I wouldn't necessarily want them to go spend all the time turning it into a different weapon anyway. So
I still don't think it's perfect, which I think is kind of irritating considering Sludge Pump and the GK2 they kind of nailed, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm not sure how many issues were with the weapon coming out of it. But with the Sabata, when do you use the fire bonus? Because whenever you would want more damage to be done, that enemy is often immune to fire. That's my current concern with that. So that it feels kind of weird. In that it's like a quasi damage boost. Like it's essentially you just whenever you use the flamethrower, use that. Whenever you use the cryo cannon, use the shatter, or not the shatter, the penetration rounds. And whenever you use the sludge pump, use the other one. And it just doesn't. It feels like a really shallow version of the Wave Cookers one. Where they just tried to half-ass replicate it. In all fairness, the Sabata's sludge pump thing is actually interesting and good and not half-assed and very nice. It's going to definitely be the only thing I like using the Sabata for, which is only end up going to reinforce the sludge pump's supremacy in that you have a very good build with all three of the secondaries with the sludge pump, which cannot be said for like the flamethrower, which, as mentioned, I think the Sabata is still kind of not.
Yeah, the flamethrower really has the problem of like it's the one that has the least synergy in the secondaries, like genuinely, because it's even quite limited on the Sabata, and yet I'd argue none with the EPC, no actual synergy. Not that they can't be used together, but I wouldn't point out any synergy. The cryo cannon has very little with the Sabata. I think the Sabata has the benefits of being something that you can fire quite quickly and deals direct damage, so fire bonuses are very obvious, and now you also have blow through there. But the cryo cannon obviously pairs well with the EPC and the wave cooker. And then the sludge pump is just like, there's just fantastic options for all three.
But like so many.
And then like the flamethrower is like mainly just the wave cooker now, which is interesting that it actually isn't the Sabata really. It's mainly the wave cooker, but
I think it still has issues, which I mean, I'm not that surprised because they didn't go that hard, right? They barely touched the overclocks.
No, well, I was actually had a point to make about that, which is I don't think the overclocks are overly problematic. I think chain is a bit odd, but overclocks need some attention. Need some more of them. I don't think it's inherently. I don't think you need to rework like the balanced one adds magazine size into something more interesting, right? I think we just need some more overclocks. I think it would help because it would help every weapon that has an issue, right? The Warthog is a great weapon, but it's got a really boring overclock selection, right? So you could hit a lot of check a lot of these things off the list just by adding more overclocks. You don't need to change much about them still. We just need some more overclocks. I think the need for it is somewhat understated. I think a lot of people want it, but there's some really good reasons you can pinpoint as to why more overclocks is just a great idea. Like, because it would really help these more boring weapons. That's like a big one. So yeah, get on it, please.
Yeah, I mean, no,
don't even get on it. Just release them. Just release them.
Yeah, and all the other things they did was like overall good. I mean, the double barrel is kind of wild how strong it is. I can't believe that we're in a universe where there may be a point in time that double barrel might get a nerf. Um, that's
Woo!
um, well, I mean, it's like the best option for both AOE and single target. Like
Yeah, 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 yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
not good.
yeah, 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 yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
stunning. And yeah, but even then though, I still think, hey, fuck it, it's fun. It's fun as hell. It's a really blast to use, and that pun was on purpose.
Yeah, and then like Rocket Barrage might be weak, but I still find that a ton of fun. In fact, I don't think it is actually weak. I don't think it is. The only reason I say that is because I found out the total damage was lower than pretty much every other Hurricane build. But it's still a lot of fun, and Implanted Bursters, mwah, lovely, and all this other stuff. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was
Weapon input buffer, eh? Hey.
Yeah, I, I guess I've noticed it.
Have
But
you?
also not really.
I haven't used the M1000, so maybe that's why I've noticed it.
Barter a bunch with all the trying out of the new stuff, and it felt good, which I guess is different from the Sabata.
Whoa. 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 Anyway. I feel like we can't. I feel like we can't just end it, but at the same time, we've sort of been giving our opinions pretty much like every step of the way. I mean, yeah, I sort of did give mine. I think as my overall opinion is that I am very I like season 4 in a vacuum. That's and I emphasis on the word I use there being like. I'm not like a season 4 like I don't know, disciple. It's not going to be my favorite update, certainly, but I'm happy with everything that it's added.
It was not off the way.
No, that seems to be our take on season 4, and I think pretty close to like objectively the best take. I don't know. I feel like that's just the right way to see it. Yeah. Well. I think we're probably done then.
Yeah, I reckon. There's a DLC, but
DLC, surprisingly good framework.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right,
we're done. Fix the goo cannon, only consuming one arrow every other full charge shots if done consecutively.
I do not read the patch notes.
Fixed thermals. No. Sabotage machines can now have mutators.
I've yet to actually see or do one of those.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've done one, but I'm not exactly hyped to play Industrial Sabotage. But that's neither here nor there. Or maybe it is here. I don't know.
The damage has been done with that kind of thing.
The damage has been done. Halfway there. That's not.
Get hit by a chair.
Duh. Anyway, that's it. If you enjoyed this episode of the Battle Pigeon Plobcast, please make sure to plob, like, and subscribe.
Yeah.
And click that plobtification bell.
For more extremely long podcasts. I mean, hell, this is
in Barrel Vision form. This is a return to form of sorts. Yeah. Help us. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, because I'm thinking it might be possible to basically just do a follow-up podcast next week. It might be possible to do it on the same subject, especially if we get some good comments. So please leave some.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on season 4?
Yeah, let's make it about that. And I think there'll probably be maybe a review of sorts later, maybe a month or two later. I don't know.
Because all the content they added is kind of for the long term, so it's best to look at it as such.
But yeah, I mean, I know it doesn't always work when you're like this, but we are this time genuinely really do want to know what people think about season 4. So please, I encourage you to leave comments.
To this point, then
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe they haven't.
Like Jesus Christ! If you're gonna sit here watch a video this long and then not give your own opinions, what?
Did you comment on Patrician TV's 8-hour Morrowind review? Did you?
He didn't ask me to.
That's a good point. All right, we're asking you to leave a comment on Patrician TV's Morrowind review. Okay, no, seriously. Anyway, yeah, thank you so much for watching as always. And we need to end this, so let's end it. Harley,
Alright.
you count me down to ending it.
No,
'Cause
zero.